They're embellishing this artificial intelligence, claiming it can do things it cannot. We'll get there. We'll get there. Okay, let's get back to this concept of priming though first. So priming is a phenomenon. Priming is a phenomenon in which exposure to one stimulus influences how a person responds to a subsequent related stimulus. These stimuli are often conceptually related words or images, hence the importance of language, what we always talk about here. Language and symbolism or imagery. You use the right words, the right language, you use the right images plus messaging. I guess the words would be the messaging, right? You mix messaging with symbolism, you get mind control. And that's what we've been undergoing for generations now. But we're seeing it at a level that we've never seen before due to the exposure of symbols and messaging through things like social media, devices, smart technology. Now, AI is just making that a whole lot more complicated and powerful. It's automating the delivery system of these words and these images. That's the big problem here. People are losing their ability to think for themselves because they are more and more outsourcing their human innate faculties to technologies, specifically in the form of artificial intelligence. And this is only going to turn out bad. It will only turn out bad if we continue on this way. And we will. You know why we will? Because people want to make that money. Social media, influencers, Tate, for instance, just one example, has been creating this culture of greed, cutthroat behavior, this hyper capitalism mixed with technocracy. You know, think about it. That's what technocracy is. Smart tech, digitization, everything's connected, everything's instant and fast. It's so fast and so instant. Now you can get a damn machine to run everything for you, automate everything, and just sit back and collect a paycheck without even working hard for it. Artists are being replaced in many ways. Writers, we'll get there. It's crazy. Now, the talentless sociopath can get a hold of some of this technology and create all types of things. Without the real skill, talent, or ability or drive to even do it. This is a big problem, guys. I keep rambling here. Let's just finish this up here, man. The priming process is theorized to occur when mental representations of the concepts are activated by a person's exposure to something that those concepts are related to. This activation influences how the person responds to the concepts, such as by making the response quicker. Some scientists have described priming effects as a sort of rational bias, very important, where the mind interprets ambiguous new perceptual information in a way that is consistent with information it has recently perceived. Hence the importance of throwing out symbols and messaging to us constantly. So what it does is it starts to create the grounds from which we understand things, and new ideas, novel ideas, or contrary ideas are ignored. Because we get this kind of one-track mind, and that's what's happening right now. AI is developing this hive mind in the populations, but that hive mind is in a sense one-tracked. I have here, so let's think about metaverse, which is really just spatial reality, okay, virtual reality or virtuality. Metaverse is actually just, in a sense, it's like a community within Web3 or the spatial web. So the metaverse really is not the big issue. It's just it's like a component. The real issue here is spatialism, right? This concept of the spatial web, whereby everything in the physical world is then connected to sensors, networks, and processing, such that it creates a digital twin of the physical world. What this creates is, I call it a virtual mirror, where it's literally a mirror of the physical world, but digital. And it can be accessed, monitored, managed in real time. Big problem here. This is a big problem. Now, it works great for industries, especially, I'll show you guys some things in a second here. It works great for certain industries, but the problem is, they're not just stopping at the industries, man. This isn't just for business.
There's a new world emerging right before our very eyes. A world where we seamlessly and naturally interact with augmented and virtual reality. opening endless possibilities to learn, collaborate, create, and explore. Where spaces and cities become smart, physical and digital goods are tracked, and people's identity, security, and finances are protected, enabling citizens, big data, artificial intelligence, and the Internet of Things to finally work together for the benefit of humanity and the planet. But have you ever stopped and wondered, how do we actually get from here to there? The last few years have shown enormous advances in augmented and virtual reality devices, computer vision, location tracking, edge computing, blockchain, and 5G. But these applications and the devices and operating systems they utilize are not connected. They're siloed experiences. There's no common standard for how all these technologies and applications can work together. For that, you need a common protocol, a way to communicate between each of these technologies, allowing parties to agree on who, what, and where everything is in physical and virtual worlds. This enables anyone with the right permissions to discover what something is, who owns it, where it's located, and what can be done with it. It is a paradigm shift in the future of computing. The spatial web is currently developing multiple specifications and pilot projects with commercial and enterprise partners, as well as standards groups and governments. Join us and our many forward-thinking partners and industry leaders as we drive the next generation of innovation and lay down the digital infrastructure to support a better future and a new web for people, businesses, our environment, and humanity. Let's build the spatial web.
Now, how did we get here? So think about spatialism, virtuality, and you think about AI. I'll tell you where it started. This concept of spatialism, what is the messaging? The messaging is simulated reality or simulated worlds. The spatial web, the simulation theory, right? We're living in a simulation. It comes directly from video games. And of course, prior to that, it came out of science fiction. But not until video games were produced, not until then, did we have an understanding of the possibility of the world being simulated. Because through computer technologies, especially video games, they were able to design through algorithms, behaviors, narratives, etc. There's a lot of details and context, but we have to go back to Pac-Man. Pac-Man is where it all started. It all started with Pac-Man. Pac-Man is extremely important if we want to understand AI in relation to human behavior. Not just AI proper in general, because AI has been around since the 60s. But if we want to understand the metaverse, if we want to understand the BCI, the brain-computer interface.
Brain-computer interfaces, or BCIs, can be used to create new pathways for these impulses. So let's take a step back. Just what is a BCI? In a nutshell, we're trying to connect mind to machine. The intention is to combine technologies like electrodes with external computing devices to obtain some sort of desired output, like an action. Electrodes can be placed in close proximity or onto the gray matter of the brain, creating a new neural network for the chemical and electrical signals our neurons communicate with to follow. These signals could be measured and modified with the help of the computer, which would read the data and perform the task we desired. Of course, this technology is still extremely new, and there are likely to be other methods that could potentially achieve the same goal, such as implants or something like neural lace, which is a mesh made up of a collection of electrodes that are rolled up and inserted into the skull using a needle, later unraveling and spanning the brain. Well, if we could connect a prosthetic to a brain-computer interface, it could be possible to move a prosthetic limb by just thinking about it. Crazy. This isn't 5,000 years away either. In fact, this technology is already being used.
We have to look back at Pac-Man, and I know that might sound weird, but let's go there.
Mr. Arcade, I need help. My husband won't come home.
Pac-Man, I can help.
Get him, Pac-Man!
Stand back. This is the official tabletop version of Midway's Pac-Man.
It looks the same.
And it plays the same. Monsters, power capsule, sounds, even displays best score. And best of all,
You can take Pac-Man home.
Official Midway Pac-Man for 1 or 2 players. The arcade game.
Now, many things hidden in that. Okay? Many things hidden in that. Now, first off, how did it begin? She was complaining about how this game was taking her husband's attention away from her. This is 1982, guys. We're already dealing with, well, we've been dealing with this, especially post, social media. But it's not a new phenomenon. My husband, he's just playing this game. This was the beginning of the atomization, the separation, the detachment, the attack on the family, the attack on relationship, the attack on relating. Gaming was one of the first steps towards this type of atomization, this detachment, this separation, or the first example of digital solipsism. Our first digital bubble came in the form of arcade games. So when I think about arcades, of course we have to talk about pinball, but pinball is different. It's physical. You're still dealing with real physics, right? There's lights and sounds, but it's still very connected to the material world and in physicality, right? Totally different. But once you start simulating things, you become detached, and the computer starts to imagine and create narratives for you. That's where it all started. I have here from Pac-Man to Chat GPT. Come a long way, guys. Come a very long way. Pac-Man was also one of the very first games. One of the very first games that used a type of AI. Okay, it's called deterministic AI systems. Okay, so the perfect example of this AI, this early AI, is the ghosts. So if you remember playing Pac-Man and how the ghosts chase you around, this is primitive artificial intelligence, or basically primitive machine learning. The ghosts there. So it's early AI in gaming. It's a type of a primitive machine learning. And I guess technically the term is infinite state machine learning, I think, or infinite state mechanics or something like that, if we're going to be really accurate with the terminology. But we have to look at Pac-Man. We just can't talk about AI. We can't talk about metaverse. We can't talk about Internet of Bodies. We can't talk about BCI, brain-computer interaction or interactivity or interfaces without talking about the earliest interface, the first real gaming screen, which was the arcade. Now, I'm sure there's other things we could talk about, but let's just try to keep things as basic and simple and foundational and general as possible for understanding. And if you look at this here, what are they selling here? This is pretty interesting, and that's why I pulled this specific example here. This is a miniature version of the arcade. So they already were trying to provide a mobile example, a mobile representation of this stationary, static, big box gaming system called an arcade. This was the beginning, and we'll get there eventually, but of course we have to consider the Game Boy. This was like an early example of the Game Boy, which eventually brought us the Game Gear, et cetera. So yeah, guys, mobility. But there was a Netflix show or film, I don't even know what to call it. It was an experiment. It was a thought experiment. In fact, I think it was a type of Psyop personally, and I think it was a data grab as well. But if you guys remember Bandersnatch, and I'm sure if you guys seen this, you remember this scene when he was tripping out on acid, and that guy just went on and on about, in a sense, a type of simulated reality. What he's doing here, and it's funny how this came out right before all of this virtuality stuff started getting pumped so hard. I swear this was a type of predictive programming as well. But he's talking basically about how life is like a video game, just like Elon has said in one of our past shows. Life is like a video game. Everything's simulated.
So what is life for you? I mean, you look at our life, and I heard you before speaking. Is it a dream? Is it
Is life a
real?
dream?
Is it a million D? What is life for Elon Musk?
I find as I get older, I find that question to be maybe more and more confusing or troubling or uncertain. I think particularly when you see the advancement of something like video games, like say 40 years ago, you had video games, the most advanced video game would be like Pong, where you had like 2 rectangles and a dot.
Come on, guys. What's his first reference to what's the meaning of life? The dude says he references a damn video game. A video game. He's not Gen Z either. You see how these people think? He references a video game for such an important question, man. The question of questions. Well, it's like a video game. Really, because that's how he sees life. Through the lens of a computer screen.
Or uncertain. I think particularly when you see the advancement of something like video games, like say 40 years ago, you had video games, the most advanced video game would be like Pong, where you had like 2 rectangles and a dot. You're like batting it back and forth.
I played it.
Oh yeah, me too, exactly. I
That's
played Pong. Exactly, it sort of dates you a little bit, but yeah, we both played the same game. And that was like, wow, that was a pretty fun game at the time. But now you can see a video game that's photorealistic, almost photorealistic, and millions of people playing simultaneously. And you see where things are going with virtual reality and augmented reality. And if you extrapolate that out into the future with any rate of progress at all, like even 0.1% or something like that a year, then eventually those games will be indistinguishable from reality. They'll be so realistic, you will not be able to tell the difference between that game and the reality as we know it. And then...
Look at how he says it. And look at how he's looking at him. He's like, bro, that's kind of weird. You're excited about that? That's what makes life worth living? That's the meaning of life, to slowly destroy it such that it becomes a video game, and the video game's so advanced that you can't tell it isn't real because you hate reality. You hate the material world. You hate people. You hate mankind. You hate nature. You hate God.
People think there's one reality, but there's loads of them all snaking off like roots, and what we do on one path affects what happens on other paths. Time is a construct. People think you can't go back and change things, but you can. That's what flashbacks are. They're invitations to go back and make different choices. When you make a decision, you think it's you doing it, but it's not.
When you make a decision, you think it's you doing it, but it's not. This is speaking to this concept of AI running everything, living your life through recommendations, references, or just straight up patterned heuristics that AI creates for you that dictates and informs your behavior day to day. This is, in my view, that's when I try to dig at the subtext of some of this. That's what I get out of this, especially seeing where things are going. They want you to believe that reality is a simulation. So if you believe reality is a simulation, you'll have no problem letting AI run the show because it's a simulation anyways, right? We might as well control the simulation by creating the algorithms that create it. Interesting.
It's the spirit out there that's connected to our world that doesn't think it's you doing it, but it's not. It's the spirit out there that's connected to our world that decides what we do, and we just have to go along for the ride.
Just go along for the ride. Let go. Give up. Let the machines control you. Remember this, automation, guys. Removing humanity from the function of reality. We become... You know the rest.
Mirrors let you move through time. The government monitors people. They pay people to pretend to be your relatives. And they put drugs in your food. And they film you. There's messages in every game. Like Pac-Man. Do you know what PAC stands for? PAC. Program and control. He's program and control man. The whole thing's a metaphor.
Program and control. It's my personal belief. Through this adoption of this specialized technology, so-called, this machine learning, we become We become the artificial intelligence because we're no longer freely, voluntarily, intrinsically creating ideas, engaging with the world, producing in general, creating in general. Hence, artists now using AI to do the art for them. It's mindlessness. It's literally turning yourself into a slave, giving yourself up, giving your will to the machine. See, we are becoming the machine because as we more and more outsource our ideas, our abilities, our thoughts, our emotions to the machine, we become the artificial intelligence. And that's exactly what Pac-Man is. He's just a machine that's working through algorithms. And you think you're controlling him, but the game's controlling you because the game is creating the narrative for you to follow.
He thinks he's got free will, but really he's trapped in a maze. The whole thing's a metaphor. He thinks he's got free will, but really he's trapped in a maze, in a system. All he can do is consume. He's pursued by demons that are probably just in his own head. And even if he does manage to escape by slipping out one side of the maze, what happens? He comes right back in the other side. People think it's a happy game. It's not a happy game. It's a nightmare world. And the worst thing is, it's real and we live in it. It's all code. If you listen closely, you can hear the numbers. There's a cosmic flowchart that dictates where you can and where you can't go.
Wow. There's a cosmic chart. A cosmic chart that dictates where you can and cannot go. He's speaking to the algorithm of Pac-Man that puts you in a maze, forms walls around you, parameters. This is precisely what artificial intelligence does through the concept geofencing. When they have these spatial networks up, when they have the spatial web created such that digital twins of the environment have been produced to the degree that all of your movements and behaviors can be monitored through processing data, then they can very easily create the game of Pac-Man as our reality, in that all we do is chase, the little pieces of food, whatever that is, which for us will be income and legitimate food to survive. The point is, it will be controlled algorithmically, so that's the parameters, but there will also be walls, okay, that are created through geofencing.
Geofencing is a location-based service that uses GPS, RFID, Wi-Fi, or cellular data to prompt an alert, action, or feature on another device. These alerts or prompts are triggered when a mobile device or RFID tag enters or leaves a pre-established virtual boundary. You're probably most familiar with geofencing in advertising. For example, if you download an app for your favorite grocery store, restaurant, or retail chain, and you enable location services, the next time you drive by that location, you might get a coupon, a promotional ad, or a simple reminder to drop in. Or you might head into a restaurant only to receive a prompt from its competitor across the street. In that case, the geofence is set up around the competition so they can draw customers away. In both instances, pre-established coordinates dictate a virtual boundary that can be used to engage with customers. However, for this to work, end users need to opt in to the app's location services. Geofencing is also popular with social networking, most notably in apps like Snapchat, where you can find geo-specific filters that only work within a geofence. You'll also see geofencing used to create audience engagement. For example, a concert venue might use geofences to crowdsource social media posts or to send out information about the venue or event. Geofencing is also increasingly used with smart appliances. If you have a smart fridge, it can send you a reminder that you're out of milk the next time you drive by a grocery store. Drones have also grown in popularity over recent years, and geofencing is one way to establish restricted areas for security or privacy. When a drone enters a restricted geofence, it might disable the device or simply send an alert to the user. There are also applications for geofencing in human resources, telematics, and security. It can be used to keep track of a business's vehicle fleet, to see when employees enter or exit the building, or to ensure only verified employees can access secure areas. While there are plenty of useful applications for geofencing, as with any new technology, it comes with some cautions. There are valid questions about security and privacy, especially with targeted advertising. And it's likely we'll see more regulation and laws around geofencing.
These are all very realistic possibilities when we think about spatial this concept of spatial reality. They're overzealous, these technicians and designers. The problem is, once this stuff is produced, there's no escaping it. There's no escaping it. That's the biggest problem. Once it's here, there's no going back. Hence the importance of 2023. The year was 2023. One day, that will be said quite a bit. That was the year everything changed. Because from 2023 on, AI was more and more gaining ground in control of the physical and material environment of humankind. Pull this here. Massive, okay? The classic and enormously popular Pac-Man video game came out in Japan on May 21st, 1980. Wow, that's several days after I was born. That's pretty crazy. Amazing. And by October of that year, it was released in the United States. The yellow pie-shaped Pac-Man character who travels around a maze trying to eat dots and avoid for hunting ghosts quickly became an icon of the 1980s. Huge. It was the biggest thing. It pretty much put video games on the map. It created video game culture. Okay. I'm looking for a specific, actually, I think that's in this other one. Yeah, I think it's in this next one here. One of the most popular arcade games of all time, Pac-Man was released in arcades in 1980 and became a pop culture icon for the decade. Indeed, it did. Immensely popular. From its original release to the present day, Pac-Man is considered one of the classics of the medium, virtually synonymous with video games, and an icon of the 1980s pop culture. Upon its release, the game and subsequent Pac-Man derivatives became a social phenomenon that sold a large amount of merchandise and also inspired, among other things, an animated television series and a top 10 hit single. Another really important thing regarding Pac-Man is, at least initially, gaming was more of a thing for boys and men. Pac-Man introduced gaming to women in a way that had never been done before. Or I guess we could say Pac-Man was popular with women as well. Now, I think that might have had to do with Miss Pac-Man that came out a little bit later, but I think it was already gaining ground with women prior to that, hence the reason they even created Miss Pac-Man. I don't know if that's historically accurate, just a guess. But I do know for a fact that Pac-Man was very popular with women, almost just as popular as it was with men. And this never occurred prior in terms of gaming, right? So this is a big deal, but there's also a financial component here too that I want to mention. When Pac-Man was released, the most popular arcade video games were space shooters, Space Invaders being the most popular. The most visible minority were sports games that were mostly derivatives of Pong, as someone had mentioned earlier. Pac-Man succeeded by creating a new genre and appealing to both genders. Pac-Man is often credited with being a landmark in video game history and is among the most famous arcade games of all time. It is also one of the highest grossing video games of all time, having generated more than $2.5 billion. $2.5 billion in quarters. Quarters, man. By the 1990s. Let that sink in. Think about the 80s. Just think about economies of the 80s. Billions is a lot of money for the time. All through a video game. Can you imagine how powerful socially, behaviorally these video games were, or at least Pac-Man, to garner such support, craze, rave reviews, attention, the hours people would spend playing these things. I did it as a kid. I used to love going to the arcade. It was a big deal. The quarters you would spend. The anger that you would induce in your parents for asking for more and more quarters. Yeah, man, 2.5 billion in quarters, man. Coinage. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. But here we are. Now let's jump to 2023. Remember, I said from Pac-Man to ChatGPT. From gaming characters, because this is where it started. This is where avatarship starts. With playing a character, a fictional character that's a symbol that's digital. This is where it started. picking your character in an arcade game has led to full-on avatarship, full-on digital identities and selves. Weird, very weird, but real. Now let's go to DARPA. Transhumanists are no longer a conspiracy theory, but they are telling us what they are doing. Let's look at DARPA representative, and from the horse's mouth, man. All we do is bring the receipts here. That's it. We're just bringing the receipts.
DARPA calls it transhumanism, military transhumanism. But in an interesting way, this is actually part and parcel of the whole movement towards robotics. It's not only making individual warfighters comfortable with robots, it's this idea of coupling man and machine and merging humans and machine. And DARPA is doing that with programs now with what they call biohybrids, which people might call cyborgs. You know, they're able to actually control a rat through a labyrinth remotely because they've implanted electrodes in its brain. They can do the same with a moth. DARPA in 2014 created a steerable moth by inserting electrodes in the pupa stage of the moth, which then transformed. The wings came out, and this part of the machinery is now part of the animal system. DARPA is able to steer a moth. DARPA calls it...
There it is. From the horse's mouth. And it just starts with moths, just like it just starts with lab rats and monkeys, and essentially transfers to humans. I think you should pay quite a bit of attention to how, through a lot of this convid crap, they've used mice studies as evidence and rules for how to inform human biology. Equating the biology of a mouse to a human is extremely flawed, but I'd argue insane and dangerous if we're going to consider things like genetic materials and permanency. Like, it's this permanent effect. You can't retract genetic information like that. Now I want to give you guys some examples. I always try to give you real world examples of stuff that people are using day to day that prove a lot of the arguments we make here and show bit by bit the steps being taken through consumer-based goods and consumer-based or commercial products and services. This one is called Pulsoid. Very fascinating. And again, they always target the gaming culture. That's why I have so much love and, you know, just empathy for the gaming culture, because they are, in a sense, one of the premier populations of experiment right now. Because a lot of these technologies, especially some of the transhumanist stuff, is going to be coming through software, essentially the gamification of all things and games in general. This is a type of now there is a little bit of imagery here. There's like a demonic figure that they're going to show, and it's really disturbing, and I can't like censor it, so I don't want to put this vision or visual in your head, but I just want to show you the commercial. So if you want to close your eyes for this, close your eyes, because it's kind of scary, especially if kids are watching. But I just want you to see this technology, because it's you'll get it, check it out, man. These are wearables. Look at this, man. For those that watch this show, like, this is like damn. This is it's all happening, man. Yeah. Are you brave enough to share your heart rate on a video game? And I get the appeal, because what it does is it shows how scary a game is or something, because, oh, wow, look, his heart rate's really high. I get that appeal. But first off, let's just think about general health. Is it good to be getting your heart rate jumping up? And think about content creation and how, the more engagement, especially for gaming, the more engagement, the better. So probably the goal will become logically to get your heart rate up as much as possible, get it as high as possible and as much as possible to increase kind of the reaction. Because say if your heart rate's through the roof, or the higher the heart rate, it's going to produce a type of awe or wow, excitement in the audience. The audience is going to want to see the high heart rate because that describes how intense and crazy it is. I get that, but let's think logically about this. First off, is that good for the health? To be playing a video game that shoots the heart rate up high and then make that measurement or that rate an object of desire. Yeah, they show Dead Space game, exactly, right? Think about it. Good to see you, MK. You see this, guys. Not only is it not necessarily good for you, and if you follow the logical conclusion of it, could result in behavior that would encourage dangerous and harmful things to one's body. What does it require to even use wearables? What is it collecting? That's biometric there. That's your heart rate. This company, these clouds, whoever own these things, have constant biometric data on these users regarding heart rate. Don't you understand that those heart rate data points are extremely valuable to companies that produce this type of software and these types of video games? When you think that everything's being leveraged, everything is being leveraged for scalability when it comes to the data-driven epistemology, but also data-driven economies. If data is gold, let's get as much as we can. And the better the data, the more we're going to invest, the more we're going to promote, advertise, market, and push this stuff. Clearly, the higher the heart rate, the more engagement. Don't you think companies will start leveraging those data to create increased heart rates of those who play? I mean, come on, guys. What situation are we in right now where people are having what? Heart failure? You mean to tell me we're having a rash of heart failure in teenage boys who are the most that play the largest percentage of video gamers, people playing video games tend to be in this demographic, but they also are the same population that are suffering from myocarditis more than any. Yet we're going to sell this technology that encourages the rapid increasing of heart rate such that it becomes a fundamental interactive element of the game to begin with. Make that make sense. Somebody make it make sense. They don't care about your health. No, nobody does. That's why it's so important for you to care for your health. The Most High has given us instruction. He's given us guidance. He's given us an ability to have meaning, to have purpose, right? He's given us salvation, right, through his finished work. But you got to do something too. You're responsible for your health. No one else is. We have to start coming back to some of these first principles, man. We see the biometrics are all over the place, man. Biometrics are everywhere. Not just with the QR codes and ordering stuff and, entrance access to things, but now video games. This is the incremental foot in the door, step by step, technological mission and function creep of the biodigital convergence. They must slowly integrate us into this biodigital system, starting by getting us to accept or even look to give you as much biological data as possible. Gamifying it, as you saw there. Perfect example. Let's go to another use of this. Palm Pay.
I just paid using only my palm at the grocery store without credit cards and cash. Let me show you how it works. You need to sign up on Amazon One kiosk. You insert your credit card and the machine scans both of your palms. Then you enter your mobile number and agrees with terms of use. You're all set. I didn't believe that it worked that simple and decided to check it straight away. I just got something to drink and went to the cashier. And this is the moment. I just paid using my palm. Can you believe? What do you think about this technology?
You already know what I think. It's convenient and it's kind of clever, but then when we know the ultimate goal of these technologies, that's when it all seems very clear and no longer innocent and cool.
Seen before, but I've been thinking about it ever since. It's kind of bothering me. Have you guys seen these new stores that Amazon is building? There's no cashiers, no checkout area, no cash registers. You just scan your Amazon app, walk in, take anything you want, walk out, and your Amazon account is automatically charged and a receipt is sent to you by email. I'm honestly not sure what to think about this. On the one hand, it is very convenient, even kind of cool. On the other hand, it feels like the next level of surveillance. It feels kind of scary to be normalizing this. And it is going to be normalized. This is the future of grocery shopping and probably all shopping, and I'll tell you why. Walmart, for example, says that they lose about $3 billion a year from theft. But it's basically impossible to steal from a store like this. You can go ahead and try, take anything you want, stick it in your pocket and walk out. You're still going to be charged. You can't even get into the store without scanning your app. They know who you are the moment you walk through the door, and they've access to your credit card. This means that Amazon stores will automatically be more profitable, and that will force all the other stores to either drop their prices to compete or adopt the same model, and I suspect they'll do the latter. So imagine that in the not too distant future, shopping as a whole is going to be basically automated surveillance. Interesting as well that the book of Revelation says that there's going to be a time when you won't be able to buy or sell without a particular mark. You can really see how something like that is possible now. You can't just walk into a store like this and try to buy something with cash. It's not even that they won't let you use cash, you just can't. It's impossible. So again, it's convenient, but I think kind of scary. What do you guys think?
With retail thefts on the rise, Walmart CEO says they'll have to start raising prices or even close some stores. Eyewitness News reporter Marco Robles live in Porter Ranch with the details on that. Mark.
Yeah, John, good morning. Theft, of course, is nothing new, but the real issue here, the increase, is in organized retail theft when a large group goes into a store to take a lot of merchandise all at once and leave in a hurry. And that's happening at stores like Walmart. The CEO speaking out yesterday on this issue in an interview saying that these thefts could lead to prices going up, as you mentioned, even store closures. He indicated that that could be the case if prosecutors continue to have a lax approach to these shoplifting crimes. The CEO saying each store location has security measures in place. The other part of the equation is partnering with local law enforcement to hopefully correct this over time. This news from Walmart follows statewide efforts to tackle the issue. A retail crime task force with the California Highway Patrol has increased their presence at shopping centers this holiday shopping season to heighten visibility and make arrests. And that task force has had success since its inception. The task force has recovered merchandise valued at nearly $26 million. This video released yesterday by the LAPD shows that this isn't a Walmart issue. Back out live, rival stores like Target also seeing a major increase in retail theft this year, recently reporting $400 million more in losses this year compared to last year.
Yeah. I think it's creepy, disturbing, very, very weird, but I think it's coming. Well, it's here. Those will be the first places, New York, San Francisco, these types. Those will be the first places. And the Gen Z hyper progressives are going to love this stuff because it's good for the environment and I don't got to do anything. I just walk in. It's just so convenient. So I just wanted to show you these as examples, evidence for all the breakdowns we do here, all the shows and concepts we discuss here. These are all real world examples.
Start each day with a grateful heart and a positive mindset. You never know what amazing opportunities the day may bring. Let's have a great week, my dear friends. Start each day with a grateful heart and a positive mindset. You never know what amazing opportunities the day may bring.
I believe we're going into a new axial age. Okay. by way of artificial intelligence. Now we've been led towards this way through the Enlightenment, right? But I think now we're actually reaching a new axial age. All right, so the axial age. What do I mean? What do I mean by the axial age? All right, so artificial intelligence and the new axial age, is a term coined by German philosopher Karl Jaspers. It refers to broad changes in religious and philosophical thought that occurred in a variety of locations from about the 8th to the 3rd century BC. According to Jaspers, during this period, universalizing modes of thought appeared in Persia, India, China, the Levant, and the Greco-Roman world, in a striking parallel development. Without any obvious admixture between these disparate cultures, Jaspers identified key thinkers from this age who had a profound influence on future philosophies and religions, and identified characteristics common to each area from which those thinkers emerged. I think we're going through something similar. And from my view, I have it written down here at the bottom: AI and transhumanist philosophy, automation, digital bio-digital convergence, as the new universalizing mode of thought. Okay, so as we see here, going back up to the top, according to Jaspers, during this period, universalizing modes of thought appeared in all of these different areas. It is my view that AI and transhumanist philosophy is appearing as the new universalizing mode of thought. This is so important from my view because this universalizing mode of thought is it's axial in that it's literally happening from so many directions, and it's massively shifting everything we've known philosophically. And I've tried to explain this over and over, from metaphysics to epistemology to ethics and aesthetics. Okay, everything is shifting now, right now, and that is happening through, in my view, AI and the undergirding value system of it, which is transhumanist philosophy. Now let me get into my view on the optimism that I have towards this new tech, this new AI. A lot of people are worried, especially certain industries, right? Like AI now, especially with this GPT chat GPT crap and other AI generating software is crazy. I mean, transforming art, architecture, writing, right? Again, I could always be wrong, but these are just some conclusions I've come to. So I want to, from the outset, always be humble when I present original ideas, because I'm not claiming this is the end all truth. I never want to be that dude, because that's not who I am. You know, I'm just sharing with you some of my ideas, right? Now, artificial intelligence and the new axial age, I believe it is going to present two things. In that there's a non-neutral effect at the top here: dehumanization and human purification. Non-neutral effect. Again, technology is often understood to be neutral. Misconception. Complete misconception, usually said in lieu of any explanation for the negative consequences of technology, right? People say, oh, well, it just depends on how you use it. I know it's going to literally transform society, but it just depends on how you use it. That would presume technology is neutral. But in fact, it's non-neutral in that it will cause harm, yet it will cause good, right? It's not in between. It's and both, okay? It will cause destruction and harm, but it will also cause many good things, many positive things. The problem here is, are we willing to accept the negative consequences? Are we prepared? How will we survive? Right. Now, human purification and human dehumanization. Now, I have an image for you. I have an image for you regarding human dehumanization. We're going to touch on that. I want to demonstrate now the human purification component of this non-neutrality in AI technology that I've come to as a conclusion, right? This is my more optimistic view on the development of AI over time, in that it will literally transform everything in all industries. By way of AI overextension and systemic saturation, which I think will occur, and it's already almost there. It's going to happen quick. By way of AI overextension and systemic saturation, an ironic phenomenon may occur as a result. AI may inadvertently specialize humanness. Insofar as AI is generalized systemically, its heavy-handedness shall force a new emphasis on human nuance, creativity, and pure essences, in turn shaping a new romantic era as a response and reaction to computer-based human instrumentalism. The irony presents itself in the purpose of AI as a complex mode of specialization that ends up specializing pure human nature through its attempt at rendering humanness generic and mechanistic. In other words, you can't fake unique and you can't learn creativity. Very, very interesting. Again, the irony presents itself in the purpose of AI as a complex mode of specialization that ends up specializing pure human nature through its attempt at rendering humanness generic and mechanistic. What do I mean by that for those that need more explanation? AI is supposed to be it's the specialized system that's going to do all these great things through its specification and its abilities that are far beyond human abilities. I argue it's ironic in that once AI is overextended and systemically saturated in that it's everywhere, everything is ran by AI. What it's going to do is it's going to specialize humanness such that humanness becomes special, something different, something fresh, something unique. Aspects of humanness become such a rarity. They're emphasized. They're lionized. And it's ironic because AI is supposed to be the specialization project, but what it's going to do is specialize humanity such that humanity is sought after. People are going to want human touch. People are going to want human-generated arts and ideas and creativity. AI is going to become so general, so cold and boring and mechanistic. Ironically, it aims to turn humanity into the boring, generic mechanism. And it already is now. But see, it's my view that this will be a response. This will take time. This will surely take time. There might be a dark age up until this moment where, man, we lose a lot of people to the machines. We lose a lot of people to the algorithms. It's already in play. But there will be, again, pendulum, guys. Traditionalism is coming back just like humanism is coming back. The heavy-handedness of AI will force the hand of the Most High God and once again put his creation on the front line. In my view, that's when the real war begins. Man against machine. And it won't be like what we saw in not Total Recall, but the Terminator. It'll be through creativity. It'll be through the unique nuance of human essences, designed through the arts. Plato knew it. The Most High created it. The arts are the foundation of human behavior. Communication, interaction, love, joy are forms of art. Interactive activities designed by mind, body, and spirit. You are a piece of art. You are a creation. How you live, how you react, how you behave, how you exist are all art. Now, what's happening is, in my view, Satan is trying to invert, corrupt, destroy, reinvent the art by making man as art, but not in the image of God. in the image of the machine. Think about it. The curated self, the influencer, the Instagram popular personality. Design yourself as if you are a piece of art. Your mind, ideology, worldview, perspective, philosophy. Your body, rhinoplasty, BBLs, makeup, hair extensions, hair coloring, nails, all of these enhancement things to create your identity through turning yourself into a piece of art outside of the image of God, outside of what is righteous, what is humble, what is modest, what is true. See, Satan tries to recreate God's art by taking over art itself. What's fascinating to me is how everyone is so concerned, and you should be, about AI, because it will destroy far more than it will build. There is something optimistic about this, in that what it will do will only put, in my view, over time, we have to break down to build up. This is how it works. There has to be a darkness before there is this brightness again. As we're replaced in many ways by AI, by machine, by information, it will only put a magnifying glass, a microscope on the essential, intrinsic human capacities and features that the machine could never repeat, that Satan could never copy. And in turn, what we might see is a new renaissance, or should I say, a new romantic era. Let me give you an example of what the heck the romantic era is, just to give some background. The romantic era, 1800 to 1890. Romanticism was characterized by its emphasis on emotion and individualism, clandestine literature, idealization of nature, suspicion of science, forgive the, typos if they're there, and industrialization, and glorification of the past with a strong preference for the medieval rather than the classical. It was partly a reaction to the Industrial Revolution, the social and political norms of the Age of Enlightenment, and the scientific rationalization of nature. Now, I believe we very well might, in our lifetimes, experience a new romantic era, where those of tradition, those of faith, those that want to remain human and real will react to the transhumanist industrialization of the current era, the scientism, the scientistic rationalization of biotechnology on nature. Now, is this to say that, we're going to save the day? We're going to fix this transhumanist thing once and for all through a poetic, new Renaissance movement, guys. We're just going to get out there and show people how to paint again. No, I don't mean that. But what I do mean is there's a spiritual war here behind the materialism, behind the technologies. And an aspect of that spiritual war, in my view, has to do with God's creation. And the war between Satan trying to superimpose his own view on that creation. And I think, in my view, AI is a big part of this great work. Okay. Inverting mankind, turning man into machine, connecting man to the degree that he no longer has free will. This is what Internet of Bodies is all about. A new romantic era. Now, that's the human purification I meant here in the beginning. On the top here, you see there's dehumanization and human purification. Now let's see what the dehumanization is. So the human purification is that it's going to emphasize humanness. AI is going to be so overdone, so overextended, people are going to be begging for humanness. So all of the concepts about being replaced, we will be replaced in certain industries. Let's say anything regarding computation, of course. But there's so many other aspects of life that they aim for us to forget That's why they're building up screen worlds and virtuality, AR, MR. They want to, in a sense, submerge or immerse us in this false world that Satan's created around us that isn't part of God's image. That's why the disembodiment is occurring. That's why, they want to get us away from our biology, and they want us to literally give ourselves to biosecurity and to massive powers of control, World Health Organizations, councils, all of this madness. They want us to forget who we are, who made us, why we're here. And they want us to trade all of that for their toys, their trinkets, and their machines. And they want us to believe that these machines are better, perfect, and we're flawed. The irony of it all is that the reverse will be presented. The reverse will be presented. Now, let's move on to dehumanization. So if that's the human purification, it's going to make humanness pure in a way that's never existed. What's dehumanization? Dehumanization. There's the other aspect. This is the non-neutral aspect of technology, the good and the bad. This is the bad. Not to mention, before we go into this, not only are our creativity, our nuance is going to be enhanced, going to be emphasized, going to become more valuable than it's ever been in a time that's just drenched in cold, calculated, mechanistic AI. Also, our relationships will be similarly emphasized for those of us that still can do it. And this is going to be the older populations, unfortunately, in my view, aside from the smaller portion of the younger generations that also get involved. Our relationships are going to be rich. We're going to have an appreciation for touch and the sensorial in a way that we've never had. And this will absorb and consume the majority. That romantic era that could happen down the road will be a smaller movement. It won't be the majority. I ain't saying that. It's going to be a minority. But it will be influential, and it will be, in a sense, very, very enjoyable. Now, dehumanization. Unintended consequences of an efficiency-oriented perspective. This is for those that rely on efficiency to give themselves meaning and to make a living and everything efficient. This is transhumanism, scientism in a nutshell. These are the people who will just literally trade life for AI dominance. And these 6 aspects of outsourcing come from Frischman and Selinger. This all goes back to re-engineering humanity. We've discussed this for a while now. I'm just reminding you guys. Just backing up my claims with evidence. Outsourcing innate human instincts via AI. Number 1, passivity. These are different forms of dehumanization factors that will occur in the majority of the population post this new AI world. Passivity. Through exaggerated AI-assisted experiences, mere effort is diminished. So you become passive because AI is just assisting you in so much. Effort is diminished in general. Right? Decreased agency. Number 2. We participate in less of the process than would if we performed it ourselves. Reduction in our experience of action itself. So our mere experience of human action, one of the innate fundamental aspects of life and living and existence, the experience of action itself is reduced. Decreased agency. Increased ignorance. Or, I'm sorry, 3. We're on 3 here. Decreased responsibility. By abdicating control over a process, we can become less culpable for how things turn out. This is big. By abdicating control over a process, we can become less culpable for how things turned out, in that we no longer have a responsibility for what happens. And this is going to be the result of AI-generated voting systems, AI-generated medical systems, AI-generated everything. It relieves mankind, those in charge, of responsibility altogether. Plausible deniability. Number 4, increased ignorance. Delegation of tasks can limit or warp our understanding of how a process works. Even if proxies seem reliable, we don't know the full extent of how they work on our behalf. Infoglut, also an obstacle I have written there because this is another part of it. Right? There's so much info out there. There's so much information. It's an obstacle to deny it. Why do anything myself on my own when I could simply have this AI generated for me? I don't need to know how it works. I don't need to know how it turns out. Just as long as it's effective, it's efficient, and it does what I want it to do. What this does is it completely removes you from the experience, from any responsibility of what turns out. It detaches you from reality, if you think about it. It's really, really scary in that sense. This outsourcing innate human instincts. And it makes you ignorant. You don't know how anything works and you don't care because you don't need to care. There's efficiency. There's assistance. You don't have to care. It's doing it for you. This creates blatant, universal, generalized ignorance. Imagine what this can do to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, billions of people. Reminds me of the Delta group. We could create populations of deltas. I'm speaking to the Huxleyan works. Remember the deltas. This is what would be the result of a life dictated and assisted through AI. Increased ignorance. 5, detachment. Diminished participation leads to disengagement, alienation, and ontological despair. Detachment. Diminished participation leads to disengagement. So you're not participating anymore. You're not participating in the activity, in the process. Imagine putting a mere idea, a syllogism, or a hypothesis into an AI generator, and it spits out a 30-page essay for you. You are completely detached from the conclusions, the meanings, the definitions, the truth in that essay. You're completely detached from it. You don't exist. Imagine the alienation ontologically, where you can't even take credit for things. You can't have an appreciation for anything you do, anything you experience. It's all handed to you. It's like taking the concept of being coddled to a level that's almost impossible to imagine when you think of the depth of the data and the extension of memory in these systems of AI. Think about this. It detaches you. It alienates you from experiencing things, creating an ontological despair where deep inside you don't really know what you're here for because you're not doing anything. You're not processing. You're not interacting with it. You're literally outsourcing your human instincts to a machine. Yes, it's another deep level of infantilization and engineered dependence. It's happening from so many directions and escalating fast. A population of obedient consumers. Whoo, PIP in a building as usual with the killer comments. Yes, man. Yes, PIP. Yes. Well said. Alienation occurs, right? You feel alienated, and that creates a type of ontological despair. You don't know what's real. You don't know if you're real. Am I real, or is just what the AI is producing real? Is that the real? Am I the like sub-real? Am I kind of like just the sub-real that provides minimal information, and the AI is the real that provides the finished product, the real information? Because at this point, physicality won't matter, because what's the goal? Information. So if information's the goal, then information becomes the real, and physicality becomes the sub-real or the non-existent. Last, let's go to 6. Decreased independence. When outsourcing becomes habitual, we become more dependent on a third party for getting stuff done, or knowing in general. I call it codependent awareness. And it also provides de-skilling, in that you no longer know how to do things. It's a de-skilling process. Over time, you stop learning. here I said, dependent on a third party to get stuff done. We're already doing that. But what's more important here is after that, it says, or knowing, quote unquote, in general. Merely knowing becomes foreign. What do I mean? How do you not know things? When you're raised and you cognitively develop in a world that relies on computer generated information to come to conclusions, just Google it. Does that sound familiar? That's where it started. Oh, just Google it. No, I'm going to actually go look it up in some books, and then I'm going to look at the references in that book and then read those, and I'm going to figure out a type of web of understanding of how this truth, this point, this meaning, this definition came about. That's knowing. Just Google it. First step towards outsourcing cognitive function. Outsourcing becomes habitual. You won't know anything because you no longer maintain or retain information. And why? Why retain information when you could just get it really quickly from an AI or a machine? Now, eventually, once Neuralink, epic laziness. Yeah, there we go. That's it. I mean, we want to be straight up. Epic laziness. Good one. But once this Neuralink stuff comes in, then that's when it's going to get really interesting because who are you? What's your brain? Do you even have a brain anymore? Or is it the processor that's the actual brain? Because are you retaining the information? Because think about it, memory is going to change because if you keep accessing the processor for cognitive thinking or you circumvent or you circumvent memory, the mere concept of it or use of memory by utilizing and depending on the processor, the Neuralink processor that's connected to the internet. So the internet, you outsource memory to the internet. It's like when you're connected to the internet, think about it. If your brain's connected to the internet, why would you ever need memory when you could just, and you know how quick AI is, it's like instant. So your natural, your physical location of memory in your material brain becomes useless. Think about this. But this will already have had happened once AI becomes so normalized. We're already using it in that fashion. The next step is to just plug it into the brain. So that way you won't need devices because initially it's done through device. So we're already kind of doing that with our phones as it is. Many people, especially younger people, they don't know a whole lot. They have no memory recall. They don't have like a database of all types of knowledge and systems and concepts in their minds. They have very general concepts that relate to just their day-to-day activities, which are minimal and simplistic. They have very little desires outside of entertainment and pleasure, right? They've been designed through algorithm. They've been designed through entertainment, unfortunately. This has reorganized and rewired the brain. And this AI is just going to take that much further, creating much worse scenarios. This is the dehumanization aspect, hence dehumanization, unintended consequences of an efficiency-orientated perspective, outsourcing innate human instincts. Let's talk about the demographics, the population of young boys, fatherless, mind you, young boys, and that doesn't mean you don't got a father in the home. That means that you're not fathered. Okay, because many people got dads in the house, but they're not being fathered, as Lawrence Fishburne said in the famous film Boys in the Hood. Any man could be a daddy, but not all men could be a father, right? There is a difference here, right? So no economic frame and no traditional frame. This is speaking to this predominantly Gen Z population of young men that are really just all into this stuff. Some millennials too. Now, and of course, it isn't to say there aren't attractive things about this guy, especially with regard to some of the truth he said. There's little things that people actually can gravitate towards, right? So no traditional frame, lacking the average young man today, especially Gen Z, lacks historical, interpersonal, and cultural framework from which one can relate to the sexes. Basically, they're deracinated. Lacking in the young generations today is a historical, interpersonal, cultural framework. What do I mean by that? Historical in lifelong tradition, right? There's no interpersonal cultural framework. like friendships, healthy marriages, healthy relationships between the sexes. There isn't a history of these young generations experiencing these relationships in their life. They don't have a framework to know how to form a friendship, how to form a relationship with the opposite sex. What makes a healthy marriage, right? How do I maintain a relationship over time? Hundreds of years of society has been built through families from an objective framework. If you think about the past 200 years, just say in the West, how has the societies and civilizations been built? Through an objective framework. And whether some people want to disagree with it or not, it's been a biblical framework of objectivity. Objectivity in that there's rules, there's laws, and there's an objective moral that everyone must follow and abide. I don't care if you don't believe in God. I don't care if you don't even believe in anything. The point is, there's a cultural objective. You don't even have to follow any faith or anything. It's just this civilization, this nation has a type of objective moral framework that they've taken from some religion, and they've just created a cultural version of it that everyone follows. That is missing now. That no longer exists today. That was in the past. So see, in the past, we had an actual objective framework to actually learn from and know how to deal with people, learn how to make relationships, learn how to get married in life, et cetera, et cetera. So what we're doing now is these young kids don't have this framework anymore. Now it's like starting from scratch without that foundation, plus adding disruptive technology that weakens the natural processes of social relating. You will have a culture-wide psychosocial breakdown. And that's what we're dealing with. See, these are just my own ideas. That's what I believe is the void that men like this are not only exploiting financially, but appealing to because of the void. There's such a void for young men today, how to be, especially when you want to talk about a man or how to relate to girls, that this kind of personality appeals because it could possibly be a solution or remedy for their void. Imagine no foundation, no roots, no tradition, no faith, no objective moral. Everything becomes subjective. So now they have this subjective cultural framework. Imagine being a young person, getting ready to socialize, getting ready to form relationships, and you don't have any framework. You don't have anything that tells you how this should work. You just have the internet. And you have people like Andrew Tate teaching you these things. So what I'm trying to say is tradition, heritage, faith, and even religion, pragmatically, this is interesting, pragmatically makes sense because it brings order. You don't have to agree with the actual spiritual aspect of these religions, but just the basic moral codes and the objectivity of that alone creates order. And it creates a framework from which people know how to be. People know how to get along. People know how to treat each other. This is how you do and this is how you don't do. Rules, right? We don't have those rules anymore. Now, your truth is your truth. Everything's subjective. You do what feels good. You do what feels right. And with this subjective cultural framework, we get high diversity, right? High diversity, all types of people. Now, this has just happened over time because we've mixed. We have a lot of immigration, cultural norms have merged and fused. So now we have high diversity, extremes. With high diversity comes extremes. You get extremes on one end, extremes on the other end. You get super hypersexual 304s and you get these like super isolated schizoid incels. Okay, so you get high polarization, high polarity. You get extremes in this high diversity, but you also get weaker bonding and shorter lasting bonds in general. So the bonds are weaker because there's no framework to really know how to create relationships. And why other than getting what you can get out of the other person? What's the purpose and what's the meaning of a relationship outside of getting something out of it, right? It's this very individualistic, egoistic type of culture we have today. That isn't good for family forming, and I'd say even identity and personality forming, and also shorter lasting bonds. So the bonds people do make, they're not only weak, but they're shorter. They don't last. And a lot of it's virtual through social media with these kids. So my point is, there's no traditional frame. So they don't really have a foundation for how to relate. And that's on a very deep, deep fundamental level that, in a sense, removes all the work these guys are doing. Because back to what you were saying, there's no foundation there. And we don't even have to get spiritual with it. We could just be very pragmatic and say, well, what are your laws? What is the order? What is the objective moral that you work from, such that it keeps you in line to treat people a certain way so you can have relationships to begin with?
Very least self-preservation. Like, wow.
Yeah. So they don't even have a traditional frame. And this comes with postmodernism of the 70s. And this comes with the internet culture, where everything is pretend, everything is virtual, everything is based on virality and symbol, image, iconographic. Everything is a copy of something. Authenticity, all of these things no longer really matter. It's all about reaction. What kind of reaction do you get, and what kind of effect do you get? So when you have a generation like that, they're going to have a very difficult time being present. And of course, they're going to have a difficult time making relationships and actually seeing other people. So there's such a deep-seated, to what both of you are saying, there's such a deep-seated problem with the men, but on a relating level, they don't even know how to relate to other humans, and not just the opposite sex, but other men as well. Because we could consider friendships. Or do these young men have strong friendships with other men, other boys? They lack friendships too. It's not just sexual partners. It's pure relationships. They have a relating issue, and technology contributes to this. And when you really get down to the roots of these problems, you realize that these guys aren't really doing much but putting fuel on the fire, or on the flame. Because they're not fixing the problems that they have. The 21st century seems to be defined by the nature of its technology and its use within its populations, namely social media. It is my belief that social media has cognitively conditioned millions to behave in patterns that would describe subclinical narcissistic traits. Generally speaking, cluster B features, as cultural norms, appear to be standard today. Higher levels of histrionic traits in females, with higher levels of antisocial traits in males, and plenty of overlap and comorbidity in between. All in all, the generations have had a rewiring of the brain, say post-2012 introduction of Instagram. This rewiring has presented itself as a type of trauma, and with this trauma comes a defense response, or patterned defense mechanisms. That family of mechanisms can be described by narcissism, or cluster B-like features generalized in a given population. This newfangled egoism can be described by a look-at-me syndrome that has become a thriving market. A market that runs on human emotional data in the forms of likes, swipes, and retention time. In a sea of billions online, people battle to be seen. The feeling of invisibility increases by the month. Imposter syndrome becomes a common ailment. The identity is as fleeting as the seconds-long clips, shorts, and stories that flood the feeds. Content at the expense of self. Transparency at the expense of privacy, and a desperate response to the gutting feeling of invisibleness. Because social media is a nowheresville, and social media is the new home. We all are truly homeless and alone together. What if this new virtual abyss we have all been spoon-fed is part of a grander evolution? If human data in the form of human capital is the new currency, and the spatial web is the new internet, wouldn't the new function of human beings be to serve the servers, turning human beings into pure information, data? Indeed, this can only be accomplished by introducing a type of atomization into society. Algorithms, for instance, produce this arrangement precisely. Humans become algorithmic bubbles of customized and personalized experiences, symbols, and narratives. As we all peer into our subjective screen worlds, we are driven further apart from an objective reality and each other as material persons. In a society like this, hedonism, nihilism, and exhibitionism thrives. Attention is as good as sugar, and social media presents the entire world as a stage, and every nobody as a potential star. Here we get show-offs and show-outs, close-ins, and the profane. Unfortunately, it is the youngest of the generations that are affected the most. Yet interestingly, we currently seek them to shape the future. Now, how are they doing this? First off, this is about the future, okay? This is all about utilizing the youth, okay? And what you will see is endless propaganda spread all over the place, showing children, teenagers, promoting all of this climate stuff. This is also a big part of the metaverse. You and me, say if you're over 30, or those of us that are in our 40s, 50s, 60s, this metaverse thing sounds crazy. It sounds like something for, people that got issues. People who want to live in some virtual world like it's Lawnmower Man or something. It's weird. It's beyond weird. But it's not for us. That's the thing. It's for those 12 and under right now. Now, this might not make sense to a lot of people. Why are they pushing it now? Well, you got to start early. And you got to start socially conditioning children at birth, even, right? So really, this is for the kids. That's why everything's about the youth. You don't take the wisdom of a teenager, okay, as considering where humanity needs to go. And why is that? Life experience. These young people have very little life experience. Not only that, they're impressionable, right? They lack wisdom, clearly, right? Of course, a child is going to lack wisdom. A lot of these young people are being moved by individuals. They're following leaders. They're following organizers. They're not moving from a type of internal understanding of how things work based on years and years of understanding, research, and life experiences. This is crazy. Why are we listening to these young kids? It's all emotional. It's like, oh, the environment, we have to get together, and if we don't, we're gonna, the world's gonna end. Nah, man. No, it's not true. None of that is true. That's not how any of this works. Children and young people are very they're inspiring. They're motivating. And people, rightly so. When you address young people, you're always sensitive to them. You're always, you should be more understanding. And the problem is you can't let children lead. And I think a good example of this is something like The Simpsons, right? All these shows that have always shown the young, the children smarter than the parents, and all of this. It's all coming to fruition. And I think about like Margaret Mead's work. She was big on this whole idea of listening to the youth. The younger generations we're going to learn from the younger generations. They know better. And we get that today with the tech. Well, the young people know tech better. They may, but that doesn't mean they're wise. Just because they have more knowledge, more information, shouldn't replace the fact that they lack wisdom. You can read all the books you want. You could have all the information you could possibly handle. If you don't have wisdom, you have nothing, right? And I would make the same argument for God. If you don't have God, you don't have wisdom. So really what we have here, two generations that are extremely significant. We have Gen Z. Gen Z leads the virtual trends, right? Gen Z leads the culture right now. So what we see is Gen Z actually creating and designing the culture. We see the millennial generation designing the tech. A good example is the show Silicon Valley. These are millennials. Millennials are behind the design of the tech and the direction of politics. This is why these generations are so important to discuss, because they are both controlling the development and the direction of civilization as we know it. Gen Z creates the culture. They are leading the culture. Millennials are designing the tech. Millennials are producing the political values. So our status quo cultural hegemon today of hyper progressivism, this is a millennial creation, the millennial generation. And everything we're seeing regarding TikTok and all these other, whether it's K-pop, mumble rap, all this very meta-ironic, synthetic cultural phenoms are specifically creations and artifacts of Gen Z. And we need to start paying attention to who we have in charge, who we have leading.
Let the young lead means that we need to now understand how the world's power has shifted. We are in a world now where it's going toward the east and the south. We're also in an age where technology has completely changed the definition of life itself. We have different language, a different way of thinking. The South and East are younger demographically than the United Kingdom. The average age is 40. Than the United States in its majority, and in Europe. So in order for those countries to be able to maintain any kind of edge in the rest of the century, it's got to let the young actually lead thinking, lead business, lead technology, lead the arts, everything. And it isn't a matter anymore of sort of giving people apprenticeships or waiting for them to grow up, or metaphorically, or giving them experience. I think that young people, particularly between the ages of 18 and 27, 29, actually have an idea and a shape for the new world that's about to come. If the government is serious about helping young people to find employment, they have to unleash young people to create their own employment. Put young people in positions of power. Let them run IBM. Let them run these institutions. Let them run RBS. This isn't an insane notion. In my generation, the 60s, we had an expression that said, never trust anyone over 30. I think that's got to come back into vogue.
Do you think it's important to talk to kids about this stuff?
Maybe if there's like a big group of kids, they can like spread the word.
Oh, you think kids can get the word out?
Yeah, I really do. It's important to talk to kids about this stuff because if you don't, they could have made a big change that never knew about. Kids are very powerful.
Children, kids, teens, youth are leading. And that's going to get us directly to this concept by Margaret Mead that I want to share here. Margaret Mead, of course, famous progressive anthropologist and also member of the Macy's conferences that cybernetics came directly out of, that eventually would produce the MK Ultra program. Mead, I believe this is her right here. Now, she wrote a book in 1970 called Culture and Commitment, a study of the generation gap. And it is my belief that her theories are coming to fruition. She had these three concepts, right? Post-figurative, co-figurative, and prefigurative. Here we are. Cultural creation model. This is based on the work of Mead. Now, we have post-figurative, which is young learn from old. In the modern era, culturally, we learn from the old, the elders, right? This respect for classics and learning and from, your parents, grandparents, looking back to look forward. We actually read and literature and text and word of mouth and etc. This is during industrialism. Okay, this is an industrial time, but also it's the first machine age, and it's rooted in the physical or physicality. So things have to do with manpower, horsepower, and muscle, physical material. Then we move into the postmodern era. Some could say this started in 1971, I guess, when we think of the computer age, definitely. But postmodernism really started, I guess, conceptually in the 50s. Some would even argue late 40s. Definitely post-World War II. This is co-figurative, where she says old and young learn from peers. And this is where we started to change who we learn from. And we started to learn from things like media, especially the big, heavy influence of Hollywood, right? Especially when we're talking about blaxploitation, when we're talking about comedy. And of course, when we're talking about adult entertainment, that came directly out of the Blue movie or the Blue film by Andy Warhol, who actually was the first to create any type of pornography, if you guys know what I mean. So co-figurative is when the old and the young learn from peers. This is computerization. This is when the merging of industry with computers. Right? This is the postmodern era between, say, 1950 and, say, the year 2000. Merging industry with computers, and this was a conceptual era, moving away from the physical era of the post-figurative, material, muscle, right, manpower, to the conceptual, right, idealization, the progressive ideas, the concepts of postmodern critique, right? Everything became a critique. Let's conceptualize everything. This is when we slowly started going into a false reality. Not to say we shouldn't have conceptual things, but conceptual at the expense of the physical. Then she says, eventually we're going to move into a prefigurative time. Old learn from the young. And it is my contention that that's exactly where we're at now. We've moved into the prefigurative post, say, 2012. From industrial to computerization to informational. So this era is more super modern, right? It's the postmodern. So this is merging communication with data, virtual. So we go from conceptual ideas to virtual, turning ideas and communication into data. We're at the prefigurative stage, just as a model to get an understanding of how things have changed. Based on the work of Mead, she talks about we need to get to a prefigurative time, to where we could always be ready for the new thing and the new direction of technology, because we'll put the youth in charge. The old will learn from the young.
And so, my fellow human beings, we all directly and indirectly live in the shade, but not the shadow of Colossus. My sincere hope is that now we shall join hands and hearts across this great globe and pledge our time and our energies to the elimination of war, the elimination of famine, suffering, and ultimately to the manifestation of the human millennium. This can be done. But first, there must be peace. Thank you.
Colossus works completely without human aid. We make no secret of where Colossus is located, nor do we intend to conceal how it functions. You may rightfully say that this leaves us wide open to an attack, frontally or subversively, and if that attack were successful, it would in effect leave us defenseless. However, Colossus does have its own defense. It is its own defense. In case of an attack on any of its information supply or power lines, Colossus will switch in emergency circuits which will then take their appropriate action. It is self-sufficient, self-protecting, self-generating. It is impenetrable. In short, there's no way in, no human being can touch it. Now there's one last point, one inevitable question, which we have been asked very frequently before. And that is Colossus capable of creative thought? Can it initiate new thought? I can tell you that the answer to that is no. However, Colossus is a paragon of knowledge, and its knowledge can be expanded indefinitely. I hope, along with all the scientists who helped make this particular project, that the immense power of this computer will not only be used for the defense of this country, but hopefully also as an aid to the solution of the many problems that we face on this earth, and the many more problems that we will face the more deeply we penetrate into the universe. Thank you, Mr. President.
I would argue certain types of technologies are dangerous. And I think this type of AGI is a dangerous idea. I think very basic machine learning or machine language models, just the very basic version of it to speed things up, I think is fine. It could be used in a way that could be very helpful in certain industries. But see, we don't, again, as I've said in the past, we don't have that ability to limit these things. It becomes a type of market force. What is it worth as far as monetary value? How can businesses be scaled? How can efficiency be created? How can centralization be accomplished? Massively. This is the perspective that is being put on this AI, and that's the problem. See, if we had some sense about us, we could use AI in ways that's very, very good. But keep it simple. We're in a world where everything is technological determinism, exponential growth, expansion. Constant growth, constant change, protopia, right? So this is why certain types of technologies become so dangerous. It's because of, man, yes, R.I.P. Davy Crockett. We started the whole show off with a tribute to him, man. It's a horrible, horrible situation, man. This one hit hard for me personally. So apparently Kamala is the new AI czar. Interesting.
Brace yourselves. Kamala Harris has a new job. No, she's not stepping down as VP. Biden's tapping her to save humanity from the robots. Today, she's rubbing elbows with top tech CEOs about the risks of artificial intelligence. Let's hope Kamala is excited about this as she is other topics.
Who doesn't love a yellow school bus, right? Can you raise your hand if you love a yellow school bus, right?
I like to think about a lot of things in the context of a Venn diagram. I love Venn diagrams.
Always ask, is there a Venn diagram for this? I'm telling you, it's fascinating when you do.
I just love the idea of exploring the unknown. You're going to literally see the craters on the moon with your own eyes.
Kamala's big takeaway from the meeting is that AI could infringe on civil rights and erode public trust and faith in democracy. Dana, where was Joe Biden during this big meeting with these AI guys?
He stopped by.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he stopped by to just monitor.
Just say hi.
I was thinking, you remember in school when the principal would come into your class and stand in the back and your teacher was being watched and then everyone would try to be on their best behavior for a minute? I think that's what happened. I'm just curious, are these the same CEOs that she talked to about expanding their operations in Latin America to help prevent immigration?
That never happened.
I wonder what those CEOs were thinking. Maybe not the same ones. Who knows? I love the story about her taking over because it reminds me of bringing out the child actors, like we just saw in the NASA video.
NASA. Ugh, these people. Imagine what they are going to attempt to do with this type of technology. These individuals. Now we understand from my perspective. These are just poster children. They're frontmen for people really pulling the strings. I don't think these people are really making any decisions. But I thought it was rather interesting, given my studies on AI replacing governmental duties, especially in places like Japan and India that I've posted recently, and how right after that, now all of a sudden we have the big AI guys. Where are they at? The men in gray. We got the men in gray. Strolling to the big house. Sundar, Google CEO, and Sam Altman, Open AI founder. It's just wild to me. These are the guys making the decisions of our future, man. I'm not trying to disrespect, I'm not going to judge people on their appearance. I know that ain't right, but man, these guys are so detached from the human essences that it's shocking that we're allowing people of this quality and nature to make the decisions of the human future, because the human future, the future of humanity is going to be significantly altered and influenced and inverted because of the technology and the way they're going to use these technologies. So yeah, Kamala Harris named AI czar to save us from artificial intelligence. That for me is just comedy. Pure insanity, to the degree that I'm like, what are y'all really planning on doing? Because this doesn't make any sense at all. This doesn't make any sense. What do you guys have planned? Is this really just furthering the controlled demolition of government? Is she just going to totally fumble and drop the ball? Similar to how Walensky just fumbled the bag, as it were, and now is leaving, as we predicted here. The big oops is upon us. CDC imploding. Soon we'll see Pfizer go down and all of their people. What's this here? Let's see. AI risks and users. Oh, I thought this was interesting here. I have this image here. So this, spotted someone making a presentation about the risks of AI using Chat GPT. For me, this was just a perfect example, not just of the fallen nature of man, but the idiocy of man, the laziness, the inauthenticity, right? The outsourcing of mind, the outsourcing of real research. So let me get this straight. I'm making a presentation about what are the risks of AI, and I'm going to use AI to formulate this for me. First off, don't you think you should be trying to come up with these ideas on your own by sourcing different information from different places, mulling things over and coming to your own conclusion based on a breadth of knowledge, a more well-rounded understanding of how things work? Or do you just go to the AI and say, hey, AI, how are you going to hurt us? Most likely it's going to give you, well, we don't really know. It depends on who's programmed this stuff, right? Whatever the programmers are putting in is going to spit it out, right? Yeah, you cannot make this ish up. No, you can't. Mind Sarah, okay? The world's first AI-powered journal. But check this out. It analyzes your mindset, helps you structure your thinking with mental models, and gives actionable advice. This is big time problem for me. Let me pull it up for y'all. Mind Sarah. Get personalized mentorship and feedback from improving your mindset, cognitive skills, mental health, and fitness. Again, showing you guys receipts and real examples of this idea of AI as the ultimate personal assistant. But really, it's not just going to assist you. It's making a digital twin of who you are. Now, it's not truly who you are, of course, we know that. It's only a simulation of data sets that it collects on your behavioral data, right? Internet of behaviors. So even though what you do online, what you write, all of these things are a semblance of who you are, it's not a pure representation. We understand that. But what I'm finding here is that as we use these technologies, not only are we going to start outsourcing very innate instinctual aspects of our true selves, but also we're going to be literally, maybe unbeknownst to us, designing a digital twin of who we are. That could be used against us later in the future, especially once rights are given to these different forms of AI, such that you might not even have ownership over your digital twin. I know that sounds crazy, but there very well might come a time, and I have some research on this as well, that AI will have certain privileges over the data that it collects because it's the AI that's doing the work, not you. This is another big problem I have with AI. You can't claim the work. If you're using AI to do everything for you, it's not you that's doing the work. So you don't have claim to ownership. It's not authentically yours. You know, this gets into the whole cognitive distribution theory that we'll touch on soon. But this idea of, you know, a human is not just a human. A human is this kind of like metaplex of itself and its behaviors, but all connected to all the technologies it's using. We'll eventually get there, but this is going to lead to a type of rights movement. It's already here. All right, we've been talking about this. So this is, for me, it's just kind of creepy, man. And look who's in it: Meta, MIT, Nest Labs, Harvard, Wise, Every, Yale, man, UCLA. It's like these are all the big neurotech, nanotech movements and programs, right, that are going to lead to Neuralink technology, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'm discovering is that AI is going to be sold because of its ability to create efficiency in your life, make things easier for you, and build you. You know, you're going to be smarter, and you're going to know more, and you're going to be more organized, and you're going to have your ability to manage your time better, because this AI is going to create such sufficiency in your life, such instantaneous information, such useful value, that you'd be foolish not to take advantage of it. See, this is the sales point. It's already happening, right? But what's fascinating to me is through this process, what's going to be happening is you're going to be selling yourself to, in a sense, selling yourself to this, like this machine. You're going to be like writing off ownership of your personal digital twin, your online self, right? That's very disturbing, but also your own ability to do certain things will atrophy over time as well. So it's like this double blow to the human under the guise of, you know, efficiency. And it's going to make me better. Yeah, stop critical thinking, Cookie Cruncher. That's a big one. Big one. Here's another one. Apple is reportedly building a paid AI health coach. Now, this is the problem. A lot of this will be rational to people and logical. It's like, why am I going to trust an individual who's limited to his life experience, limited to his ability to remember and cognate, limited to his subjective, innate processes? Why would I trust some personal trainer when I could have an AI trainer that's going to be able to access billions of data sets regarding whatever I'm concerned about? Why? Think about this. Now, of course, it detaches the person from a real person. This is why I think real physicality will always exist, because people are going, especially when it comes to anything regarding the body. Now, I would personally say, why would someone listen to a machine telling them about a body opposed to someone with a body? But of course, they'll be like, well, it has more data. So again, quantification over qualification, quantity over quality. This is going to be like that turning point, right? That stumbling block for a lot of people. They're going to go for the quantity over the quality. But I think there will always be those of us that rely on real humans. Anyhow, again, what this does takes you more away from your body, more away from your connectivity to your own critical thinking, as Cookie Cruncher had mentioned there, and outsourcing to a machine. Now, quickly before we move on to some other news here. What is this? Yeah, this is a good one. So they were talking about safety. Where is this at? These safety and how we have to be very careful about this. It's always a security issue. Everything's security, whether it's biosecurity or this cybersecurity. Because if you can accomplish authority over security, that's full control over everything that moves and breathes.
The White House will focus on the promise and pitfalls of artificial intelligence as the technology appears poised to reshape many aspects of our lives. Tomorrow, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and others will meet top executives from companies at the forefront of AI, including the CEOs of Microsoft, Google, and OpenAI. Well, as AI continues to blur the line between fact and fiction, it is further raising concerns about the spread of misinformation ahead, of course, of next year's U.S. presidential election. Ardonio Sullivan has his report.
You might have seen this already, but I want you to watch it. It's a political ad.
Officials closed the city of San Francisco this morning, citing the escalating crime and fentanyl crisis.
Did that even happen? Did San Francisco even get shut down? Oh, okay. I was like, that didn't happen.
A recent ad from the Republican National Committee imagines a dystopian future if President Biden is re-elected.
An emboldened China invades Taiwan.
But all isn't as it seems.
So all the images in that ad were actually created using AI, artificial intelligence.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Images are powerful, and that this ability to create so many images so rapidly, it's an incredibly powerful tool.
New artificial intelligence technology makes it easy to create fake images that can...
Are you guys reading through these lines here? This is deep. Yes, this is crazy what they're building up here. First off, they're building a boogeyman. That's clear, right? Remember the outside threat, the external threat, right? Whether it's aliens or some pandemic or some super intelligent being, right? Or some super intelligent machine. And especially when we think about the whole sentience thing they're pushing. So it's very clear. And this particular clip really speaks to it. That's why I'm so glad I figured out which one it was. It's like, oh no, this bad external threat is going to create new misinformation, new disinformation. What does this remind you guys of? For me, when I saw this, I was like, wait a minute. This is 2016, another election year. This is 2016 fake news 2.0. Y'all remember the fake news? Remember that whole fake news thing? What did it do? It circumvented, I would argue, the truth community at the time, because all of us were pumping out videos trying to expose the fake crap that was going on behind Trump and trying to show that Trump is part of it too, trying to show all of these different inconsistencies. But what came out right during that period? This fake news op, right? The fake news trope. So what it did was it circumvented the conspiratorial truth, because now it got lumped in with fake news. So people started to say, oh, anything non-mainline is, or anything conspiratorial is fake news. Do you guys remember how we all got pigeonholed? And it's funny because it happened right before the COVID, which already prepared the culture to go at anybody against the narrative, to go at anybody anti-jab, anybody anti-mask. They were already primed for this type of what I called in the past, this type of neutralizing term. It neutralizes your thinking. When you hear conspiracy, you just, your logic, your reasons neutralize immediately. You're like, nope, there's a lie. These guys are there. It's misinformation. It's disinformation. Remember that. For me, now it looks as if they will be used, and it's reasonable. It's rational, right? Because AI does have the capability of misrepresenting reality, from the deep fakes to all of these silly little kids on the internet now trying to trick everybody. Again, psyoping ourselves, psyoping each other with all of these personal chat GPTs that are going to be on everyone's phone, that's going to come standard and customized in different softwares. It's going to be used everywhere. It's going to create this situation where no one's going to really trust their eyes anymore. Right. And I know we've been talking about this for some time, but I have evidence now for some of these ideas that we've had, and they're building up the boogeyman as if AI is to circumvent the truth community once again for this next election or for this next scamdemic that possibly could be around the corner. I'm looking at 2025 SPARS. That would, because think about a 3 to 4 year process, right? They did it in 2020. It's damn near halfway through 2023. So let's just say 3.5 years. 2025, 3.5 years, right before 2030. Chronologically, it makes sense. I have it written down here in my notes. AI to circumvent the truth community once again, because we're going hard right now. We've been going hard for this whole year because 2023 has been kind of like open season. Late 2022 was kind of open season. They just started allowing things. It was weird. And even now, things are a little open. I know some things are a little sketch. It's strange. It's a real strange time. That's why I'm kind of, I don't know where these things are going, because in one way it seems safe and people are still getting eliminated. I don't know, but I know the patterns. I remember the fake news. I remember that whole that whole trope. And this whole AI fear campaign is starting to look very similar. Like they said, don't trust the media. Don't trust independent research in 2016 to 2018. Now it's like, we can't trust any screen because AI is just amok, rampant. And everyone has it. So it's like there's no finger. You can't point at anybody, because every time Dick and Harry's going to have these applications, AI to circumvent the truther. So I call it truther culture jamming, right? So we've talked about culture jamming in the past. You guys are all aware of what culture jamming is. But it's like the industry, mainline legacy media, which we understand is just an arm of intelligence, right? So they have boards and councils that work on propaganda, right? That work, this public relations councils, as Bernays originated it. These councils still exist. It's not like they just disappeared. They're just under different names or are completely unnamed or couched in some like sustainability program or something, right? But it's kind of like truth or culture jamming, because now what's happening is the whole fake news Trump movement culture jammed the truth movement, because he was like this fake pseudo truther at the moment. Everyone was saying, oh, you got to trust Trump. It's like Trump came in and circumvented and culture jammed the real truthers on the internet. And it's funny how everyone bought into that, and the whole MAGA movement blew up, and he was like some savior. And we saw what happened. He brought us the transhumanist mRNA under warp speed, literally introduced us to the first transhumanist mandated technology, all by design. So now I'm seeing a similar process with this AI. It's like, oh, they're building this AI up as some type of threat that the government's going to come in and as a savior and create, legislation, regulation, or whatever to fix the problem. But really, what they're going to do is integrate it into their own system, and the state becomes the AI, right? But through the process, there could possibly be this whole campaign of like fake news 2.0, like what I've written here, AI news 2024. It's like the new fake news is the new AI news, right? Especially for 2024. 2024 is going to be insane, absolute insanity. It's building up, man. It's building up like crazy. So for me, it's like AI is going to culture jam the truth community, like Trump culture jammed the truth community. And everyone's going to become these rogue, not even truthers, but these just rogue ish posters, right? This ish posting is becoming the new truth movement, but it's going to be integrated with AI, which builds this absurdity, right? And it's going to be so ubiquitous that it creates this film, this like mediated film. It's already happening. Yeah, at a certain level. But my point is, imagine its increase over the next 6 months going into the election. As ChatGPT improves, as it becomes more diffused, as people become more accustomed to it and acclimated. Think about the consequences of this. And again, it's putting a loaded weapon in the hand of a baby. We're going to shoot ourselves not in the foot, but in the mouth when you think of how this will play out, especially given the absurdity and meta-ironic Gen Z culture and how everything's a joke, everything's a troll. Everyone's trying to one-up each other. Who's the most absurd and funny? Who's the most darkest and sardonic? It's the perfect storm for pure informational chaos. It's amazing to think about. Let's continue.
Online trust and safety expert Tim Boucher.
This kind of image making can be democratized at such a scale, and that basically anybody can use it to impact the global conversation on pretty much any topic.
From the comfort of his garage turned workshop in Canada, he has created all sorts of fake images, imagining Vladimir Putin as a hippie, Governor Ron DeSantis at Disney, even President Reagan surrendering to the Soviets. He says he's creating the images to make people more aware of the powers of AI.
Some people will just say, you are creating misinformation. Stop doing that.
We don't have that luxury of waiting anymore. These things are happening in real time, and we've got to find ways to talk about it and to be upfront about what are both the good things and the bad things that can come of it.
Urgency for emergency, right?
Political campaigns have long used advertising to imagine the disaster that awaits if their rivals get elected. This 1964 ad from President Lyndon B. Johnson that imagined a nuclear apocalypse. Last year, a fake video purporting to show the Ukraine president surrendering to Russia emerged online.
See them building it up, guys? You see them building this up months in advance. So no one's going to be able to come out against any of this political stuff several months from now. Because everything is going to be under wait for a new policy to come out, new terms of service. I can see it happening. They're building this up. I pray it doesn't. I'm enjoying this kind of like Wild West we have right now. I know it's going to be short-lived, but damn, if the signs aren't present and easy to see.
It was a deep fake video made using AI.
It's not just I can create a fake audio of you, Joe Biden, whomever. It's that I can broadcast to that world instantaneously through social media.
Hani Farid is a digital forensic expert and professor at UC Berkeley.
50% of the views happen in the first few minutes. So even by the time I figure out something is fake, hours, days have gone by. It doesn't matter. It's over. Millions of people have already seen it.
There's so much fake, there's so much deep fakes, there's so much disinformation in video and content now. Austerity, it's the only option. Sorry guys, no more freedom. We're just gonna have to create all these very strict guidelines, and there's no room, no budging. Sorry, AI, you guys don't know how to use AI. AI is too dangerous, so we're just gonna have to make everything out of the question. Imagine.
But not all uses of this technology need to be nefarious. In India, AI was used to make it look like this politician delivered an address in multiple languages. This video is a deepfake.
Now, Delhi has a chance to change it all.
Imran Ahmed, who runs an organization tracking misinformation and online hate, says the Republican Party's AI ad isn't in itself dangerous.
It's a gateway, potentially, to much more dangerous uses of AI. For example, trying to deep fake President Biden saying, I'm welcoming immigrants into the country, or President Biden saying, I'm going to force everyone to take a vaccine.
Can you believe this propaganda? They are building up the campaign already, months in advance. This reminds me of Event 201. It reminds me of the early January 2020, China propaganda coming out, just, predictive programming, lesser magic, just planting those seeds, man, planting those seeds. Crazy.
Texas already has a law on its books against certain uses of deepfakes in the weeks leading up to an election, but it's not clear how enforceable that law actually is.
So you might spot there's a tiny disclaimer at the top that says it's made with AI.
Oh, I'm blind.
While some people we showed the ad to outside the White House knew it was fake,
all of the images in it are actually fake.
Yes.
I would believe
it. It looked like a video game.
Right.
Others weren't so confident.
I don't think I would have known that was me.
Can you imagine the level of uncertainty this is going to produce, and how they're already gaslighting people into confusion by showing them deep fakes and getting them to guess what's real, what's not real? It's amazing to me how this is unfolding for the general population that doesn't have the eyes to see and ears to hear. They're setting this up brilliantly. They will make it as if no one can trust what they see. And we've been talking about this ontological warfare, totally deconstructing reality such that an authority can be established. If nothing can be trusted, if there's too many crazy human beings, right? Too many crazy human beings using these machines the wrong way, psyoping each other, there has to be an authority, an objective, absolute authority on truth, ministry of truth. But it can't be done by a human because humans are untrustworthy. See, there's too much error, there's emotion, there's foul play involved. We need an algorithm. We need a sustainable, absolute algorithmic system that maintains truth, that maintains reality. Imagine.
Made with AI, if you hadn't said anything.
And this new artificial intelligence technology expected not only to be used to create those fake images and video and audio, but also to have other uses in this campaign cycle as we go into the 2024 election. We were speaking to a campaign election expert this week who was telling us how AI is being used to better target voters. Many campaigns have thousands of data points on individual voters. He told CNN that AI is now being used to kind of go through all of that data to figure out what voters might be more likely to flip their vote and to reach out directly to those voters. And he also said that some of the campaign messaging, the campaign emails we all get into our inboxes, some of those may also be written by AI.
If not everything, written, managed, controlled, observed by AI. I think that's... And again, I could be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong, man, because this kind of stuff is creepy. This is Skynet. This is not cool. Imagine having machines running everything. I've seen stuff that's going on in China. It's like, damn, I feel bad for some of these people. And I know there's a different culture. They're used to it. They trust their government, high trust, all of this and that. I understand. I'm not trying to be, ethnocentric. I understand. But listen. It's just kind of creepy, man. All right. I don't like it. Now, here comes more of the propaganda from DeepMind CEO Demis Hassabis, who clearly has a dog in the fight. And this is the nonsense we're going to be sold with a lot of this stuff. AI as powerful as human mind possible in the next 5 years, says Google DeepMind CEO Demis Hassabis. Now, what did we talk about earlier? How the human mind and it's just kind of supernatural processing could never be compared to a machine that's much more limited, as in quantification, opposed to the mind that is quantification, but also quality. There's a qualifying aspect of it that the machine cannot repeat. So we understand when they use as powerful as a human mind, what do you mean? And again, back to the concept of the mind, the general population couldn't define it. They have no understanding of how it works or what it possibly is, conceptually speaking. So it's very easy to say these things to the public on, MSNBC or whatever these news places are. It's easy because people don't know, so they just listen and believe. So this is how this is going to be sold to the masses over the next 5 years. Man, 5 years from now, these data sets are going to be insane. And they're going to be so clever because they have so much data and they're going to be so quick. People will believe. They will believe because there's faith involved here. They will believe. Let's see, what do we have? Dallas ransomware attack contained, but ongoing. Police fire service interrupted. So I'm just showing you this as an example of how we can't trust technology, like, full stop. It's like silly to make a centralized system based on the function of tech when things can go wrong. Imagine the fallout. And this is why I don't think AI is going to succeed the way they think. I think there's going to be so many problems, man. And that might be by design too. That might be the cyber polygon situation. That's how they bring it in. Right? Designed to fail, like making Kamala Harris the AI czar. That's going to turn out well. Yeah, we'll see how good giggling can do for AI management. Okay. And then there's this story here. Sad. Google engineer 31 jumps to death in NYC. Second worker suicide in months. Now, I didn't read this article, so I'm not really sure what was the cause of it. Plunge from 14th floor. Wow. Police responded to multiple. Jeez, man. Some could think, oh, well, people are being replaced. So they're like, my life's over. And this speaks to the people that tie their identity with their occupation. And again, I understand how that identity can be constructed over time. Say you go to school, you spend years working, building this career, and it's just taken away from you. 31, it's so young. I mean, I do understand how one can be compelled to do such a thing, but geez, man, it's just horrible. But again, it speaks to the disruptive nature of some of these things and how it's messed up that we're allowing tech companies and engineers and people like Altman at OpenAI make these decisions for society and civilization. Actually, I'm going to show you a clip here that is going to take us into the biotech section we're getting into next. Where is this? So before I show you that clip, let me show you. So now I'm going to segue us into biotech and some technology things as well as the WHO announcement. I'm going to relate the push for AI under the guise of sentience, under the guise of security issues, right? Threats on security, sentience, efficiency, and personal assistance, all these good and bad, hot and cold, traumatic kind of experience we're having with AI. In one breath, they're telling us, oh, it's going to do all these great things. And the other breath is, oh, it's going to destroy humanity, right? So now I want to tie that into how it's also just a major part of the biomedical industry. So here, check this one. Moderna teams up with IBM to put AI, quantum computing, to work on mRNA technology used in jabs. Here it is. I call it artificial intelligence or AI totalitarianism. And I'm using that term loosely, and maybe I shouldn't because it's not super accurate, but I'm just, it's a bit hyperbolic. But I mean, the point is, AI is going to be used everywhere. It's going to be universally applied in that it's applicable to almost anything in an information age, in a networked society. It's the lifeblood. It's the engine. It's the brain. It's the brain. It's the engine, right, of these systems. Okay, so it's only rational to do such a thing. The problem is we understand that this is problematic in so many ways. So what we have here, Moderna teams up with IBM to put AI, quantum computing, to work on mRNA technology. Let's read a little bit here. Moderna and IBM are teaming up to use generative artificial intelligence and quantum computing. All right, I read that already. The company said they signed an agreement that would allow Moderna to access IBM's quantum computing systems and generative AI model. This is crazy because you think about the data. This is all big data, data-driven epistemology. Think about the power of quantum computing systems with, say, the health data of billions of people, generative AI model that is going to be programmed algorithmically by people with specific ideologies, people with specific goals and ends, right? Similar to what we saw over the past few years regarding public health, okay? Right? Because we understand this isn't going to be a fair and, a rational AI. This is going to be a personalized AI. Personalized in that certain groups and their politics are going to be programmed into this AI. The incentives for these companies, big pharma, et cetera, and they signed an agreement with Moderna. And what's interesting about Moderna, even though it appears as if they failed, right? Their jab failed. That's beside the point. Moderna is the company that, in a sense, from my research, they were the ones that really completed the technology as far as mRNA. And let me show you this. This is crazy. This is, we've talked about Dr. Malone and how, and I know it's touchy. Even RFK Jr. This stuff is touchy, but when you look into these individuals, listen, man, it's just another part of this program. RFK Jr. is connected to all types of technology. Look at the recent work that Alison McDowell's doing. She's really going in on RFK, and it's not cool, man. It's not. I'm sorry, man. A lot of these guys are built up for us. These heroes are created for us, right? This kind of pseudo alternative, movements, whether it's Tucker, all of these pseudo saviors of truth. It's not cool, man. Check this out. This is just an example of what I mean. So on this tweet, someone says, here's Dr. Malone responding. So it's possible to have a real jab? Malone says no, because jabs do not work with corona V's, right? So then someone says, then why did you take 2 shots of the Pfizer experimental mRNA gene therapy if you knew jabs do not work on corona V's? Makes no sense. Makes no sense at all. Let's use some logic and reason here. Someone explain to me the purpose of taking it if not only you apparently and allegedly designed it and spoke out against it, but you took it as you spoke out against it, but you also know that it doesn't work on coronavirus? Someone explain this to me. And again, I'm preaching to the choir. You guys are familiar with these things, but listen, I'm just showing receipts. Evidence doesn't make any sense. A lot of people were like, yeah, Malone's our guy. Yo, right when he told me, or he didn't tell me, but right when he announced, that he took the jab, I was like, where did they do that at? All of this campaigning you're doing against this, all of this truth speaking, and you put that mess in you? I don't know. I'd understand if he was ignorant to it or if he was, pressured into it, but he created it. He knows it doesn't work. He's admitted it doesn't do anything. So, yeah, so much inconsistencies, right, Stephen? It's like, wow, man, come on. How are we supposed to trust these people when nothing lines up? So now you got Moderna, the minds behind this technology, teaming up with IBM and quantum computing, and now they're going to integrate that with mRNA jabs. I mean, no, not a good idea. Let me show you some evidence and proof. Let's go to the horse's mouth, Altman himself, and when he's asked what's something you would be most interested in, I guess, researching or getting involved in, what does Altman, OpenAI man, say? But biotech. I wonder why. I wonder why. Check this out.
Let's go to science then as the next thing. What are some of the things, whether it's building on the APIs, use of APIs by scientists, what are some of the places where science will get accelerated and how?
So I think there's two things happening now and then a bigger third one later. One is there are these science dedicated products, whatever, like AlphaFold, and those are adding huge amounts of value, and you're gonna seeing this like way more and way more. I think if I were like, had time to do something else, I would be so excited to like go after a bio company right now. Like I think you can just do amazing things there. Anyway, but there's like another thing that's happening, which is like tools that just make us all much more productive, that help us think of new research directions, that sort of write a bunch of our code so we can be twice as productive. And that impact on like the net output of one engineer or scientist, I think will be the surprising way that AI contributes to science that is like outside of the obvious models. But even just seeing now like what I think these tools are capable of doing, Copilot is an example, there's be much cooler stuff than that. That will be a significant like change to the way that technological development, scientific development happens. But then, so those are the two that I think are like huge now and lead to like just an acceleration of progress. But then
an acceleration of progress. Again, it's this misconception of progress. Their conception of progress is not correct. It's actually counterproductive to human progress. It's technological progress at the expense of human progress. Now they'll make the claim that no, this is progressing humanity because it's becoming the handmaid or assistant of man. But actually, what it's going to do is atrophy many human innate essences and behaviors. Yeah, exactly, Blaisdell. Progress, like what are you talking about? And the fascinating thing about these people, again, and I don't mean any disrespect to these guys. Yeah, shout out to Nicholson. I see you, bro. Good to see you, man. Thank you for being here. It's always a blessing. But I mean, I don't want to disrespect the guy, but I mean, he just seems like he's missing something human. They're just, all of these guys are very detached, very robotic, and seem to lack empathy because they never seem to, in a very human way, address just very basic considerations about human being, right? They're just all doing, and they're just so detached from the whole concept of what makes a human. And it's sick and sad because these are the guys that are literally transforming civilization based on humanity, right? Ahriman, yeah, Joe Potter, yeah, Ahriman, Steiner's work, yeah. Me and John Coleman did some talks on that.
The big thing that I think people are starting to explore is, I hesitate to use this word because I think there's one way it's used which is fine and one that is more scary, but like AI that can start to be like an AI scientist and self-improve.
This is the beginning of autopoiesis. He's probably going to steer away from using that term because it's going to freak people out when they discover what it really means.
And so can we automate our own jobs as AI developers the very first thing we do? Can that help us like solve the really hard alignment problems that we don't know how to solve? Like that, honestly, I think is how it's going to happen. The scary version of self-improvement, like the one from the science fiction books, is like, editing your own code and changing your optimization algorithm and whatever else.
I mean, he talks about this like this is how people are, right? That's what trips me out about these guys. He's just talking about this like this is how we all are, and this is what we all want, and this is how we all want to interact in the world, optimizing our lives through algorithm and updating our softwares. And it's like, bro, we're not like this. No, most people aren't like this. We're not interested in any of this stuff. And it wouldn't be such a big deal if these things weren't transforming literally reality for every single one of us. It wouldn't be such a big deal. If this stuff was like relegated to your little, lab room and or just to your computers. But no, you guys are putting this stuff in everything. You're integrating into our governments, into our food sources, into our public health, biomedical state. It's insane, this stuff, guys. It's literally insane. And for me, it's hard to accept the fact that well, I don't say no one, but most people aren't questioning these people. They're like rooting them on. It's crazy to me. Who wants to live a life of just constant updates and optimization? I'm sorry, man. I like technology. I get down with technology, man. I'm using probably 4, 5, 6 different softwares right now. They're very convenient and they're useful. They have value. But this is some next level stuff.
But there's a less scary version of self-improvement, which is like kind of what humans do, which is if we try to go off and like discover new science, that's like we come up with explanations, we test them, we think, like whatever process we do that is like special to humans, teaching AI to do that, I'm very excited to see what that does for the total, like, I'm a big believer that the only real driver of human progress and economic growth over the long term is the structure, the societal structure that enables scientific progress, and then scientific progress itself.
Yikes. In other words, he used different words, but he precisely described what I just said or what I've been saying over the years. The future, like the progress or success of human civilization and human future relies on 2 things. One, the degree to which we accept and diffuse technology, and the degree to which that technology is I guess we could say, efficient. Let's just say that. Let me run it back. What he says.
The scary version of self-improvement, like the one from the science fiction book, that's like we come up with explanations, we test them. Whatever process we do that is like special to humans, teaching AI to do that, I'm very excited to see what that does for the total, like, I'm a big believer that the only real driver of human progress and economic growth over the long term.
The only real driver.
I'm a big believer that the only real driver of human progress and economic growth over the
human progress and economic growth. Again, let's get back to technocracy. Human progress? No, technological progress and economical growth. What we discover here is the instrumentation or the instrumentalism of technocracy, where humans become ones and zeros, pure information that are just mere aspects of economies. Bottom line, so there's the bottom line, there's the financial aspect of markets and economies. But then there's this fake concept of human progress, which is really just how do we turn humans into data? And how can we have that data increase our economical structures? So again, it's applying economic concepts to human life. Again, applying economic concepts to human life. This is one of the foundational aspects of technocracy and transhumanist engineers and thinkers. They are so detached from what makes humans humans, but also what makes a civilization a civilization. Everything isn't boiled down to economies and markets and ones and zeros. But in their eyes, that's all that truly matters. And what he said here, it's plain for anyone to hear it and see it. This is the only way he sees progress. That's disturbing. That's disturbing. And it's all the evidence we need.
Big believer that the only real driver of human progress and economic growth over the long term is the structure, the societal structure that enables scientific progress.
The societal structure that enables this process of technological development. So he says, as long as we have the structure that allows this technology to exist.
And then scientific progress itself.
And scientific progress itself. 2 things. We need the infrastructure, of course, support and trust of humans. We need the infrastructure, and we need the technology itself and its development. We need to keep developing speed, velocity, all of that, diffusion, right? Technology, but also we need to build the environment, but we need to also have the trust of human beings. Crazy, so crazy, dude. Like, what a robot, says Word of Truth. Yes, what a robot. And these guys are plastered all over the media. They're all the talk of the town. Yeah. And I think there will be a renaissance, as we've said in the past, this new romantic era of like physicality and vitalism, where people are going to prefer human contact, even in person contact. In my video, I have this idea called the revival of the speakeasy. And I'm not sure if people are familiar with what speakeasies are, but they were these, during Prohibition, there were these areas where people would like congregate and have drinks and party and do poetry and sing song. And it was like this way to escape and enjoy, beverages illegally. And I see a new speakeasy developing over time once AI and virtuality becomes such an ever-presence. People will start to yearn, especially certain generations will start to yearn for that company, that interactivity, and seeing real people speak in the real world. Like to sit in front of someone at a microphone, it's seeing them speak and hearing their voice in the real, and being present with real physical beings and sharing those moments. I think that will return. I truly do. Could you imagine how much people will just be thirsty to be around real people saying real thoughts, whether that be poetry or lectures or even music, playing live music? I'm looking forward to it, man. Again, there's optimism here, because what goes up must come down. There's always a balance in life in general, So the more things become automated and virtual and detached, the more populations will seek connectivity in a true way, regardless if some of the younger generations have no interest in that. Some will, even some of the young ones. This is God's creation, these things can't fully take over in that sense. I don't know, man. New beatniks, yeah, that's a good way to look at it. AI free zones, Yaj General, AI free zones. That is something I've been thinking about. And what got me thinking that was device free zones. So I think what will happen, and the reason I say this is because I've noticed in a lot of shows currently, they say no phones, no pictures. And even in certain stores, I've noticed, or like art galleries. Well, this has been going on in art galleries, but it's like, no digital simulation or representation of the real. We must preserve the real. And the way you preserve the real is by outlawing certain forms of technology that will aim to simulate it. And devices are the main way to do that. Like, I think about, these young guys today, man. I feel for, and girls too, I feel for them, because when they're out, say they want to be silly, they want to have a good time, say they're partying, they're out in the world, out in the public. It's like you always have to worry about someone documenting you and exploiting you on the internet and plastering your likeness all over the place to be judged. And it's like, I couldn't even imagine that as a young kid or even as a young man, because, we didn't have all of this tech in high school, and we were able to act a fool and get away with things, or just be natural and authentic and free, and not like worried about someone seeing, or, someone posting this, or having everyone knowing what you're doing in your life all the time, because it's literally on the internet for everyone to see. That just has to be hard to deal with. It really has to be hard to deal with. And I think we will be moving towards some of those ideas, getting back to, not in an objective sense, but integrating some more traditional low-tech ways of living. Yeah, no devices. And this idea you have, Yaz General, of AI-free zones, that I could see it. I really can, because there could come a time, and they're preparing us for this, where AI is so disruptive that there has to be safe spaces that are AI-free, right? I mean, I could really see it happening. So again, there is optimism with some of these things. We can't be too, oh no, though trouble's ahead. But there always has to be some level of optimism. And when you think about what really matters, it's the most simplest things, right? Like just, having a conversation in person, spending time with loved ones, seeing people smile, sharing a beverage or meal, reading a physical book, You know, these are just some of the most simplest things in life are so valuable in ways that a lot of people have forgot. And I think once we start, trying or experiencing these things more, especially during a time where it's almost hard to even see these things, the value will come right back, because I think inherently, we're geared to this type of sociality, and it is by design. These technologies are detaching us from this sociality that's inherent in us all, and it's going to be a war there, right? Definitely a spiritual battle there for sure. We will. No phones at the dinner table. That's a rule in my home. It's a rule in my home. Even when I'm eating by myself, and this was hard to get to accomplish, and sometimes I slip, but even if I'm having a meal by myself, I keep my phone away from me. Sometimes, I slip up, but these little things, you'd be surprised what they do. Yeah. Now, I wanted to talk about this. Oh, this could lead. Okay, let me just say this real quick. I wanted to talk about this, what people are calling Bum Floyd, right? So there was this whole thing. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but a homeless black man was murdered, strangled on a subway recently, and it's created a new uproar. And again, for me, this is just the next psyop in the helter skelter. I feel like they're working up this helter skelter 2024, just like they did in 2020 with the Floyd thing. So people were saying, especially in the right wing communities, that they're going to attempt to do a drag Floyd, which is a new George Floyd scenario, but with a black transsexual being murdered by a cop, or just a white person, quote unquote. That didn't happen. But what did happen is what now people are calling Bum Floyd. So it is kind of disrespectful of a term. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I don't want to show the video because it's kind of disturbing, but I just want to at least bring up an image of it. It honestly looks kind of staged to me, honestly. And let me tell you, man, yeah, I hate the term bum too, Kizzy. I really do. It's really disrespectful. Yeah, I remember they had this video series called Bum Fights. It was really popular, and it just disgusted me. Everyone was loving it. But it is disgusting to see, the dehumanization of that. Yeah, stage, definitely. That's how I see it. I mean, I think they probably sacrificed this dude. He could be like honestly, man, I wouldn't be surprised, because I know they do this kind of stuff. They just take people off the streets and they use them for experiments, right? So why wouldn't they use them for psyops? And this dude's an ex-Marine. Who knows? He could be CIA. And these two dudes look like some agents or something. So they literally held this dude down and they choked him out, man. And he was just fighting for his life. Now, some could say the whole thing's staged. It's not even real. But also, they could have just sacrificed this dude off the street, for this whole thing. Because sacrifice, they need blood for a lot of these things. They do. Everything ain't completely fake, right? I'll never say that because it's illogical. Yeah, Manchurian Candidate, yeah. Now, there is a lot of history on this guy. Apparently, he's, has a violent past, violent history. I'm not going to get into all of that. I had a whole thing here of making arguments for different sides and stuff, but we don't have time for that. He thought it said Pink Floyd. That's funny. 15-minute chokehold, too much, Joy. Yeah, I'll say that for sure. Like, just, hypothetically and objectively speaking, this was way over the top. I mean, and let's be real, this isn't like a large man, okay? And he may be strong. Just because he's skinny doesn't mean he's not strong. But I mean, this was a bit much. They could have, the chokehold is fatal, right? There could have been, you could have very easily, like, wrapped his arms behind his back, and then like everyone bear hugs him or everyone piles on him, right? That's why this just looks like a psyop to me, because why would you choke bro out like that? That's not necessary. You could just everyone dogpile, But again, I don't want to get too detailed with it because it's not really important. But this is a big thing, and it's causing all types of unrest in New York. And for me, it just reminds me of the Floyd situation, man. It's like, here we go again. You guys are trying to create like like these like this is in Oakland, man. They're trying to create these riots again, and it just makes sense. It's right before the election time. It's just so predictable. So this is in Oakland, apparently. I know exactly where this is at. Thank God I'm not there anymore. But, so, you know, this is just chaos. And what happens is you get individuals that have nothing to do with these movements that aren't BLM or any of that stuff. They're opportunists, and they're young, and they're, you know, they're mad at the world, or they're bored, or they're high. You know, they just want to act a fool. I mean, this is how it is. And so you get a lot of these scenarios where people just want to burn things down. And unfortunately, we're going to see a lot more of this if this ramps up. Where's that other clip I had, man? Oh, this one. Now, there's some profanity here. This is a lot of profanity. So I want to, you know, if you got kids, you know, I don't want to hear this. But I just want to show an example of what's produced from this. So, of course, you get the black-white dynamic, but you also get the black-black dynamic. So, and he was an ex-Marine. So for me, it's like, gosh, here we go again. You know, it's always this black-blue thing. You know, we talked about this quite a bit. I did a bunch of videos on this years back. But there's always this black-blue thing, or military, like military slash, you know, law enforcement being like a white kind of thing, you know, against blacks and the oppression. And here you have the situation, and it's always the same, where you have the black cop that is now put in a position as like a traitor. And here is a very graphic scenario of this, that just what it does is it seeds intracultural chaos, meaning it seeds war within the black population, where now the black population is divided, because now you have hardworking, honest, say black law enforcement that now are put in a position to feel as if they've done their own people wrong. And it creates this divide, which is just another angle to this chaos. And this is just a very good representation of this. And again, I would not be surprised if this dude with the bullhorn, probably BLM, is an agent himself. And all of this is to in a sense, sow some kind of chaos.
That's what they do, pussy. That's what they do, nigga. Do something. Do something, nigga. That's the time it is. That's the time it is, nigga. I make them niggas pack your dumb ass up. I will make them pack you up, nigga. Watch it. Watch it. Pussy. That's right. That's right, nigga. Don't touch me, nigga. It's that time, nigga. It's that time, pussy. Let that white man get away. Let the white man walk out the door, and they'll choke out one of yours. Huh? Oh, he ain't one of yours, right? He ain't one of yours, but that white man wasn't either. He wasn't blue. Yo, he just followed orders, dog. That's all he does. He wasn't blue, nigga. He wasn't blue. If you gonna do something for black people, at least get the killer, nigga. If you gonna do something for black people, get the killer, nigga. Get the killer. Yo, y'all ain't walking together. Hey, you ain't mad, nigga. Hey, do you feel like an idiot with that shit on?
It's really unfortunate, you know, because it must be hard. Because he's put in a position where it's like the blood is on it's on his hands, and that's not necessarily fair. That's not right. Yes, Blue Devil, good to see you, by the way, bro. Says there's opportunities in crisis. That's why we see nothing but incremental and crisis in tandem, because they're all subsequent opportunities for the reset, for building back. Right? Yeah, it's a really messed up situation, man. And it's so divisive. And you think about this individual here who probably is against what happened, right? He probably doesn't support it. And we're being objective and hypothetical here, okay? Let's just pretend as if all of this is on the up and up. Yeah, I agree, Barry. It's clearly, this whole thing has to be staged from my view, because it's helter-skelter programming. It's too incremental. It's too patterned. You know, I understand things happen. I understand violence happens every day, and we have phones and stuff gets put on film. But anyhow, it's just messed up, because let's just say he's totally against this. He's a cop. You know, what is he gonna do? You know what I'm saying? So it's such a ridiculous situation where now he has to choose between his race, his in a sense, allegiance to his race and his career as a law enforcement officer, and it's just so wrong. But this is very common, very, very, very common in the community. So I just wanted to show you that as an example of, it's not just a black and white kind of psyop, but there's an intra-racial psyop going on as well that creates more division and, in a sense, splinters into all of these micro battles that intensifies the chaos even more. It's horrible what they're building up here, and I pray that people are so desensitized at this point that they don't really pay that much attention to it. Like, people come out and they make some demonstrations, but we won't see maybe another Floyd summer again. But who knows, right? But it's just, the whole thing is just so sad. So I want to show you this here. My view on it. I see this as a type of anchoring. I just thought this was interesting. This is just my own association here, trying to figure things out. But it clearly seems like a psyop, right? But let me show you more evidence for it, at least. And it's not proof, but it's evidence, at least esoteric evidence. And I think it demonstrates a type of anchoring, a type of psychological, almost like lesser magic here. So let me show you what I think about this. Check this out. Operation Bum Floyd and the concept of anchoring. And we've talked about this quite a bit, but I just want to define it for those that aren't necessarily familiar. Anchoring, in its simplest form, anchoring involves establishing an association between an external cue or stimulus and an internal experience or state, usually an emotion. As in the example of Pavlov ringing the bell for his dogs. And, you know, he rings the bell when the dog salivates, right? So it's a way to trigger a type of response, right? Yeah, Barry, most people don't even see this stuff. Very good point. Very good point. That's why when chaos happens, they believe it right away, because they're not able to see the patterns and the inconsistencies of all this stuff. I think that's a big part of why we cover these things, is so we can show everyday people who don't pay attention to this stuff. Look at all these patterns. Look at all the inconsistencies and consistencies, right? As in the example of Pavlov ringing the bell for his dogs, a lot of learning relates to conditioning, and conditioning relates to the kind of stimuli that become attached to reactions. In the bottom here, a way of anchoring can be described by preforming one's first impression or shaping a presuppositional frame. Okay, so what you do is you create the environment that almost makes up the person's decision for them by structuring the frame from the outset. So what you can do is you can structure a situation as a racist situation without even saying it's racist, but by anchoring certain symbols that will trigger a sentiment that leads to a person's thinking this is racist. A perfect example of that today is showing any image of a black man being choked out by, say, a white man or anything like that. It's been anchored so many times into our psyche through all of these psyops that anytime we see, say, on the news, a white person harming a black person, immediately there's this, at least for certain demographics, especially the hyper progressive, it's immediately this is racism. So it is my view that certain symbols, certain words, certain forms of language, and certain imagery are anchoring techniques to induce a sentiment or hatred or a perception of something being racist from the outset. No logic, no context is needed, because all of the proper anchoring symbols or words or whatever have been presented such that it literally triggers a sentiment immediately. This is called anchoring. It's a very powerful psychological phenomenon. Here's another one here. Easily produces cognitive biases by utilizing emotional anchors. So you create a cognitive bias in the person. So what happens is they're not thinking. So they're completely moved by an emotional reaction to the anchor. Yeah, colors as well, Bari. Absolutely. Colors as well. Especially in Kabbalah. If you look into Kabbalah, they use a lot of color coordinating to manipulate perception. That's why when I saw that Kabbalah ring on Tucker, I was like, man, or that Kabbalah string, I was like, man, that's witchcraft. I don't care what anybody got to say. Kabbalah is witchcraft, straight up. Do with it what you will. All right. Now, so what are the anchoring? I think this concept of ni, I just can't stop seeing this. Ni is an anchoring symbol and term in this helter-skelter program, right? Operation Bumfloyd, interesting metastructure of the term ni. Ni as phonics in helter-skelter programming. So phonics can be manipulated, or should we say, phonics can be exploited as an anchoring process, right? Phonics, sound of words and the relation to meaning. You don't even have to use a certain word. It could be the phonics therein. It could be the sound of the word and its relation to other sounding words that, in a sense, creates an association of meaning. Let me show you here. The guy's last name is Neely. Neely, okay? Neely. That is not a coincidence in my view, because when I see Neely or when I hear Neely, I hear knee. And if this is the helter-skelter programming that is related or relies upon a type of, black body destruction or what have you, I think of knee, right? And then I think of knee on neck. And then I think of taking a knee or kneeling, like knee, kneel, knee. This is a very clever way to utilize phonics as an anchoring tool. I call it acoustic anchoring because phonics is just acoustics. Kneel, knee as phonic trigger for selective emotional response and instantaneous sentiment recall. So the instantaneous sentiment recall is anger and perception of racism. Right when NLP, Joe, there we go. That's where anchoring comes from. Bander and Grinder. They're the ones that came up with this. So when a person someone will see Neely, and subconsciously they won't even realize that a sentiment is recalled within them that associates the knee of Floyd and the knee or taking a knee, kneeling of Kaepernick. If we pay attention to when they rolled out all of these psyops, the knee was very significant. Do you remember how significant the knee was? The knee on the neck. I mean, literally how he even killed the man. If we think of the Kaepernick psyop, what was the biggest issue? Taking a knee. And then we think of this current op, which is all along the same lines, even hypoxia, neck, knee, neck, kneely, neck, chokehold, using the neck as death. Same scenario with Floyd. And then to even go deeper, when I see Neely and Neely, I see needy. This is phonics. Sound association, rhyming. Words is magic. Words and their sounds and the relationship between sounds produces a type of almost blanket-like definitions. This is deep psychology here. But what this does is language is paramount in our structure. Language creates our realities. We're able to understand the world around us by having terms to describe what they are. Otherwise, we can't relate them in a way that is intelligible. That's why manipulating language is so powerful. Because if you manipulate language, you manipulate the symbols that people use to form their thoughts. So if you manipulate language, you can form people's thoughts. And if you know enough about things like anchoring, you can actually structure words in ways that will subconsciously trigger certain thoughts or sentiments, emotions, or definitions. You can make knee mean racist. So when anyone sees, say, a black man being harmed and the incorporation of just the sound knee, it doesn't have to be knee as in my knee. It could be Neely in the man's name. Incorporating the sounds of knee with a black man being harmed, especially if a white man's doing the harming, racist. Floyd sentiment rises to the top immediately, instantaneous sentiment recall. You can't help this. This is the power of programming. Also with Neely, I get needy. And he was an impoverished, homeless, also mentally ill man. A needy man. He was needy. When people say give to the needy, acoustic anchoring Neely, a phonic trigger for selective emotional response and instantaneous sentiment recall. Knee equals racist as an anchor, or Neely equals needy as poverty. So all of these things are subconsciously coupled and infused in the mind. Impoverished, oppression, pain. Here at the bottom, I hear these are in the bottom here. I have some free association terms that come up: black body, pain, death, mental illness, poverty, drug abuse. Just by using the phonics of knee, all of these terms, as well with the symbols, right? The imagery. Can't do it without the imagery. I mean, you can actually, but the imagery makes it a lot stronger. So you have the imagery and then the phonics of knee, and all of these things can pop up emotionally, especially in the progressive left, because this conditioning is for them. Right. So I just wanted to present that because as personal evidence that I'm using to describe how this helter-skelter is working on a very subconscious, metaphysical level, right? They are subconsciously conditioning minds to see things a certain way through manipulating symbol, sound, and image. There was this video here. This dude literally, like, I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but I just want to show you. This is legit. Like, this dude is just loading up his gun. This is crazy. He's literally just loading up his gun, and he's really dirty. So you can't really make him out, but this is a white man here. And he literally just puts a gun to the back of his head and blows his brains out. Now, they don't show that, of course. The dude turns away. And some might say, well, we don't even know if that happened, and that's true. But the point is, if this did happen, why is like no one saying anything about it at all? Like, at all. No one's saying anything about it. It's just like it didn't happen. But then we got this Neely that's everywhere. Literally everywhere. By design, in my view. Just part of the helter-skelter psyop. Because this scenario with the black guy shooting the white guy doesn't fit the narrative. Now, that's obvious hypocrisy. Why would we expect authenticity and fairness from a psychopathic demonic institution? We shouldn't, and we don't.